Chapter 265. Chen Hao also avoided those familiar eyes. Hearing Xia Yuyu's words, Wu Ruochen frowned as he looked at the noisy crowd. Yuyu has never experienced anything and likes crowds. Brother Wu, let's just sit in the hall. Xia Nantian said softly when Wu Ruochen was feeling awkward. With Wu Ruochen's cultivation, he wasn't at the level where he could talk to him. Moreover, he was 10 years younger. But Wu Ruochen's potential was something that Xia Nantian couldn't ignore. Although he knew that Wu Ruochen's main goal was to befriend his sister, he didn't mind. Since Xia Yuyu was about to start her training, it was a good thing for her to meet some super geniuses. Of course, Xia Nantian also knew why his sister wanted to sit in the hall. Oh, I see. Miss Xia should have come into contact with the world of cultivation long ago, Wu Ruochen said as he looked at the people in the hall. Everyone, please feel free to chat. If there's anything interesting, just say it. I, Wu Ruochen, will pay for everyone's expenses. Thank you, thank you. Some of the cultivators in the crowd immediately responded. There was an empty table next to Chen Hao and Yi Feishue. The three quickly sat down. Coincidentally, Xia Yuyu's position was facing Yi Feishue, so she could see Chen Hao's back. Sister, are you a disciple of the star-picking sect? What made Chen Hao confused was that Xia Yuyu, who had never experienced anything, was still so naive and cute that it was a bit scary. After seeing the mark on Yi Feishue's chest, she didn't care about the gazes of the crowd and directly asked with her pleasant voice. Yes, Miss Xia. Yi Feishue was slightly stunned and quickly said. She also didn't think that Xia Yuyu would ask. In her opinion, Xia Yuyu was a super genius of a 9th-rank sect and didn't want to have anything to do with people like them. Yuyu. Xia Yuyu still wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Xia Nantian. Senior sister, we're done eating. Let's go. Chen Hao stood up and said. If he stayed any longer, he was afraid that he would reveal a flaw, especially since Yi Feishue had recognized his back. After not seeing Xia Yuyu for 2 years, he had already changed a lot. Although Xia Yuyu was unable to recognize him in the Northern Shadow Festival, if his emotions fluctuated and he revealed a trace of the Heaven Yang Earth Yin Arts aura, Xia Yuyu might be able to detect it. Moreover, even if he wanted to acknowledge Yuyu, this was not the right time. Every single one of them was stronger than him. Xia Nantian and Xia Yuyu were much stronger than him. But that was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that Wu Ruochen's aura was also much stronger than his. However, the moment Chen Hao stood up, the three of them looked at Chen Hao. Wu Ruochen didn't seem to care. However, Xia Nantian and Xia Yuyu both frowned. The two of them were both experts of the incarnation realm. If they didn't pay attention, they wouldn't have noticed it. But now that they saw that the other party was a disciple of the star-seizing sect, Xia Nantian and Xia Yuyu began to carefully size them up. When he saw Chen Hao's face, he immediately caught a trace of a mysterious aura. Wait! What made Chen Hao's heart tremble was that Xia Yuyu's voice carried a trace of inexplicable excitement. She thought of a possibility. Originally, when she came to the Black Iron City, she had sensed Chen Hao's aura, but it had disappeared in an instant. She thought that it was her imagination. But later, when she heard Xia Lanlan and Duan Yufei talk about Chen Hao after returning to the Black Iron City, she began to suspect that it was not an illusion, but a real encounter with Chen Hao. She didn't know why Chen Hao didn't acknowledge her, but she believed that Chen Hao must have his reasons. Because she understood him. After a year and a half of soul intertwining, comprehending and cultivating together, she believed and was incomparably sure that Chen Hao would never forget her. Miss Xia, is there anything else? Yi Feishue looked at Xia Yuyu with a little surprise and asked. But Chen Hao didn't turn around. He already knew that he had made a mistake. The middle-grade 1000 illusion mask could hide from nascent soul experts, but it couldn't hide from incarnation experts. Although the other party couldn't confirm his true identity, they could definitely see that he was wearing a mask. This point he and Chen Shui, who had powerful soul force, could see through it, let alone them. Sorry. Big brother, I know. This sister, if you see Chen Hao, please tell him that Yuyu, my cousin Xia Lanlan and Duan Yufei, they really want to see him. Xia Yuyu was simple but not stupid. Her words paused at the right time. Except for Chen Hao and Xia Nantian, no one understood what was going on. Xia Nantian lightly sighed in relief. At this moment, Xia Yuyu had suddenly broken through to Incarnation Realm. It was already impossible for him to suppress her with his aura. Moreover, he couldn't bear to see Yuyu's stubbornness. Therefore, he only reminded her and didn't forcefully stop her. Could that guy be Chen Hao? Xia Nantian also had doubts in his heart. I can pass on this message. Just as Yi Feishue was in a daze, Chen Hao finally turned his head and said, Chen Hao and I are best friends. I even saw him in the Dark Wind Cave. He also told me that he really wants to ascend to a high enough realm as soon as possible and become friends with super geniuses like Brother Duan Yufei. Unfortunately, his current strength is too weak. He doesn't dare to climb the social ladder. I will tell him. However, with his character, I'm afraid that I can only disappoint Brother Duan's invitation. Is that so? My cousin and Duan Yufei will wait for him. Wait for him to be strong enough. And it shouldn't be too long. Perhaps he will participate in the inter-sect competition next year. We'll take our leave. Chen Hao didn't dare to look at Xia Yuyu's eyes under everyone's gaze. After speaking, he took the lead and walked out of the restaurant. Yi Feishue followed closely behind. So it really is him good, he's arrogant enough. I wonder if his true face is as good as Duan Yufei said. Xia Nantian thought to himself as he watched Chen Hao's departing figure. Duan Yufei is a righteous person. After watching the two leave, Wu Ruochen smiled and said, It's rare for the Zhaixing sect to produce a passable genius like Chen Hao. However, their disciples think too highly of him. Is it so easy to break through to the nascent soul realm? Even he had been stuck at the peak of the late-stage golden core realm for more than a year. Only after confirming that there were no problems did he dare to trigger heaven's punishment. However, Chen Hao was only at the late-stage golden core realm. Although he could kill Fan Feng without any problems in terms of battle strength, heaven's punishment didn't just test one's battle strength. It also tested one's body, mind and soul. If there were any problems in any of these areas, one's cultivation would be destroyed. Let's not talk about this. I heard that Brother Wu has mastered the 9th level of the Heaven Sword technique? Xia Nantian hurriedly said. He knew his sister's personality. Fortunately, Xia Yuyu didn't seem to hear Wu Ruochen. The inter-sect competition? Only Chen Hao's voice reverberated in Xia Yuyu's mind. Even though he'd changed his voice and appearance, his words from before had undoubtedly told him that he was Chen Hao. It had also undoubtedly told her why he hadn't come to see her. At the same time, it had also told her that the inter-sect competition might be the moment when the prideful him would truly meet her. Inadvertently, a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She didn't release her telepathy, and neither did Chen Hao. However, both of them knew that the reason why they had spoken so openly was not through telepathy or telepathy. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to control themselves. Junior brother, do you want to participate in next year's inter-sect competition? After the two walked out of the restaurant, Yi Feishue couldn't help but ask. Chen Hao smiled faintly and nodded. His eyes shone brightly. When he first had this idea, although he would work hard in that direction, he wasn't as determined as he was now. Tian Fa is very dangerous. Yi Feishue said with lingering fear. I'm confident. Senior sister, let's part here. I'm going to Dragon Elephant City where the 100 Empire role is located, Chen Hao said. Be careful. After bidding farewell to Yi Feishue, Chen Hao went directly to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's teleportation array. Passing through the transportation formations, they arrived at Dragon Elephant City in less than an hour. At this moment, the sky had already darkened. The night seemed to come earlier than Black Iron City, which was millions of miles away. Looks like today's competition has already ended. I wonder how many rounds have passed. I'll go find Elder Wu and Senior Sister first. Chen Hao casually asked around in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, and found out where Wu Zichuan and Dongfang Ting were staying. The Heavenly Armament Inn was a large and open to cultivators in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Li Chou, do you dare to bet? Why wouldn't I dare? I bet that Hellion Wuzi will be the champion. Fuck. Then why did you say that? Didn't you always say that Kai Hua was awesome? Why did you change your mind now? Do you think I'm an idiot? Kai Hua is awesome, but Helian Wuxi hid her strength too deeply. Even the so-called most awesome 100 Empire ranking in the previous competition was trampled by her. Chen Hao had just walked into the hall of the heavenly armament and when he heard some young disciples discussing. These disciples were clearly some outer sect disciples of some sections. What made Chen Hao smile even more was that Helian Wuxi seemed to have exceeded his expectations. "Sir, are you staying in the inn or drinking wine?" At this moment, a beautiful attendant came over with a smile. "Staying in the inn and drinking wine. Get a room with me first, and bring me a few bottles of your best wine," Chen Hao said with a smile. "All right. Sit anywhere you like, please wait a moment." Chen Hao's powerful aura attracted some outer sect disciples in the hall. However, Chen Hao did not wear the Jiaxing sect's robes so no one could guess. Chen Hao did not pay attention to them. He chose a corner and started drinking by himself, his ears gathering information about the 100 Empire ranking. It must be said that this kind of drinking place was indeed the best place to spread news. Little Wu is actually a rank 3 martial saint, and she can even hide her cultivation. Then is rank 3 martial saint her true cultivation? Hearing the discussions of the crowd, Chen Hao's mood became better and better. Chapter 266. Needless to say, Helian Wuxi must have obtained an extremely powerful legacy. Of course, being able to have such a cultivation in the secular world had a lot to do with him. Chen Hao didn't know the specifics, but the treatment that Helian Wuxi enjoyed was probably countless times better than what he had received. In addition to this, there was also the most mysterious and unpredictable fate in the world. However, Chen Hao didn't think that he would have much effect on this. It would definitely be helpful, but it mainly depended on one's fate and opportunity. However, when he heard the names of Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun, Chen Hao faintly felt that perhaps the impact of his fate on everyone was beyond his expectations. Little Mo has also reached the 9th grade of Sword Grandmaster. Dongfang Jun is a 9th grade Martial Grandmaster. Jinyuan Kingdom has taken up 3 places, and they are all so strong. Far from what our batch can compare to. Is this really the fate that I brought to them? It's just that, my fate is so strong, is it my own or? Chen Hao thought of Xiaoyu. Fate and fate are actually fate. It is the most mysterious existence in the world. Among the 3,000 great Daos, the great fate technique ranks first. It is illusory and unfathomable. With my current realm, I'm unable to understand it at all, nor am I able to understand it. Karmic luck is like an invisible web of relationships that affect and restrict each other. No matter if it's my own karmic luck or the karmic luck of others, if I can grasp it, then it's mine. Chen Hao got the information he wanted and didn't stay any longer. He quickly finished the wine in front of him, went directly to the room he had booked, and entered the cultivation room. However, he didn't immediately enter the cultivation room. Instead, he began to organize his storage space for the first time. It took him a full 4 hours to finish. If converted into 8th grade elixirs, I'm afraid there are nearly 100 million of them. Duan Yufei, Itoda, and Fujikawa are enough to take up more than 80% of them. Chen Hao didn't hesitate to filter out some of the 8th grade elixirs, 9th grade elixirs, and the spirit weapons that he didn't need. According to Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and I Jianpain, Helian Wuxi, Mo Yui, and Dongfang Jun, he divided them into 6 portions, enough for them to use for a period of time. He then gave a large portion to Dongfang Ting. Although Dongfang Ting was in the Golden Core realm, Chen Hao knew that her wealth was limited. Otherwise, when he returned to the secular world, he wouldn't have been so shabby. Although Chen Hao thought that he was super rich at that time, he didn't have to worry about it. But now, compared to the nouveau riche Chen Hao, there was really no comparison. Not to mention Dongfang Ting. Even the super genius disciples of the 9th rank sects might not be as wealthy as Chen Hao. Chen Hao planned to bring back the rest of the things that he didn't need. On the second day, at the first glimmer of dawn, Chen Hao went to the practice field where the 100 Empire ranking competition was being held. He bought the tickets and sat among the crowd that had arrived earlier than him. Today was the second day of the round-robin tournament for the top 20 of the 100 Empire ranking. Helian Wuxi, Mo Yui, and Dongfang Jun, the 3 of them had all entered the top 20, and Helian Wuxi was unanimously recognized as the champion by everyone. Mo Yui and Dongfeng Jun also had the strength to enter the top 10, because during the selection, the two of them had only admitted defeat. Chen Hao had already obtained this information last night. At this moment, the surrounding people's discussions were even more heated, and countless disciples were drooling over Helian Wuxi. At first, Chen Hao was still interested, but after listening for a while, he had the urge to kill. He simply blocked his hearing. He couldn't be serious just because of some flowery words. An hour later, the sky was bright. The practice field was already crowded with people. The disciples of the 100 Empire ranking were like dense locusts, directly flying in the air. The number of people was not much different from the previous competition, but whether it was individual soldiers or as a whole, the aura was much stronger than the previous competition. At this moment, Chen Hao, who seemed to be resting with his eyes closed, finally opened his eyes. He released his powerful soul perception and instantly locked onto a beautiful figure, wearing a white dress, long hair fluttering in the wind, a graceful and exquisite body, and a face as cold as the moon after not seeing her for 2 years. The only girl that Chen Hao had called femme fatale and had taken advantage of appeared even more beautiful and moving. Even if Chen Hao saw her again, his heart trembled slightly, especially when he thought of how Helian Wuxi seemed to have gone crazy when he left, her face full of tears as she crashed into the transmission light pillar barrier. Chen Hao was even more moved. Although he didn't compare Helian Wuxi, Tantai Lian or Xia Yuyu, Chen Hao was clear that the one who truly made him feel the most understanding, the most warm, and the most real was still Helian Wuxi. Mo Yui, who used to be like a block of wood, was still tightly holding on to that large sword. However, he was no longer a block of wood, but an unsheathed peerless treasure sword. His expression was cold, and his aura was cold, especially his eyes, which were like two sharp and merciless sword lights. From beginning to end, he maintained a distance of 5 steps to the right of Helian Wuxi and 2 steps to the back. As for Dongfeng Jun, who had once wanted to violently beat him to death, his handsome face still looked as infuriating as before. Arrogance and arrogance were written all over his face. However, the position he stood in was very tacit with Mo Yui, as if he had become Helian Wuxi's bodyguard. Little Mo, my aunt said that Chen Hao would come. Our 100 Empire ranking is already nearing the end, but there's still no sign of him. Could it be that something happened? Dongfeng Jun said in a low voice. Call me second brother. Call me boss. Nothing will happen to boss. Mo Yui said coldly. This problem, wait until you have the strength to defeat me. There's no problem with calling you boss, it's just that I can't change the way I address you right now. Although my aunt didn't say it clearly, I feel that boss seems to have offended a very powerful person. You were also very powerful back then. Today, I'll make you kneel down. Fuck, can you not talk about the past? Today you're dreaming, right? I'll never be surpassed by you. Strange, even I can't see through it. Chen Hao looked at the 3 people, as well as the 2 disciples behind them whose auras were obviously much weaker. Especially when he heard Mo Yui and Dongfeng Jun's conversation. He was completely relieved, but carefully sensing Helian Wuxi's aura, he was actually unable to distinguish her true realm. This made Chen Hao incomparably surprised. One must know that Chen Hao's soul perception was many times stronger than ordinary people. It was not something that people of the same realm, or even 2 realms higher than him could compare to. But Helian Wuxi's aura was like the clouds in the sky, erratic and unfathomable. What kind of fortuitous encounter did she have in these 2 years? After Helian Wuxi and the other disciples of the 100 Empire ranking took their seats one after another, Chen Hao retracted his gaze and looked at the sect elders and the inner sect disciples who came slowly. After seeing Elder Wu and Dongfeng Ting at the back of the group, they slowly stood up. Elder Wu flew directly to the rostrum. Dongfeng Ting flew to the outer sect low-level disciples accompanying the 100 Empire ranking trial in the Jiaxing sect. Chen Hao smiled slightly. When he transmitted a message to Dongfeng Ting, his figure flashed and quickly approached. After a while, Chen Hao sat beside Dongfeng Ting. His identity became an inner sect disciple of the Jiaxing sect. But none of the outer sect disciples sitting at the back recognized him. The two of them communicated through voice transmission without changing their expressions. Chen Hao obtained a lot of information about the Xiao family, Jinyuan Kingdom, and Xuanwu Empire from Dongfang Ting. In 2 years' time, astonishing changes had occurred again, especially the Xiao family and Jinyuan Kingdom. The two of them only stopped talking 2 hours after the competition started. As Chen Hao expected, Helian Wuxi did not even have a chance to appear after a day. In front of her, the only one who did not admit defeat was the strongest disciple, Kai Hua. The two of them would definitely be arranged for the last match of the 100 Empire ranking. Fortunately, Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun had fought twice. The first time, both of their opponents were experts in the top 20, but both of them displayed powerful battle strength and obtained victory. But their opponents in the second match were each other. After fighting for half an hour, there was still no winner. Mo Yui's sword intent was incomparably sharp, attacking more than defending. But Dongfang Jun's battle talent was stronger. Although he was suppressed by Mo Yui could not do anything to him. In the end, the two of them were depressed and declared a draw again. When the day's competition ended, Dongfang Ting brought Chen Hao and flew directly to Helian Wuxi's side. "Aunt, is there any news about Chen Hao?" Dongfang Jun did not care at all when he saw the unfamiliar face of Chen Hao. He went directly to Dongfang Ting and asked. Helian Wuxi and Mo Yui also stared at Dongfang Ting. Obviously, Dongfang Ting's arrival made the three of them faintly expectant. "No, the two of us are here today as lobbyists. We'll go back with you." Dongfang Ting smiled and said. Hearing Dongfang Ting's words, Helian Wuxi's beautiful and cold eyes flashed with imperceptible disappointment. Mo Yui also resumed his cold appearance. "What lobbyists? Can we still run away?" Dongfang Jun said. "Okay, I have to put on an act and talk to you about the conditions promised by the sect. After all, the three of you are the most outstanding, especially Xiao Wu. The two of them are not bad either." Dongfang Ting could only follow Chen Hao's intentions and temporarily lie to Helian Wuxi and the others. "Then let's go. This senior brother's aura is so strong. And is he also an inner disciple of the Zhaixing sect?" "Yes. I'll introduce him to you when you stay. Let's go." Chen Hao smiled and did not speak. Helian Wuxi and Mo Yui were the same. If they could not speak, they would not speak more than half a sentence. "Junior brother, I'll talk to the two of them. Xiao Wu, little Mo and little Jun. Do you want to talk to them one by one or all together?" After everyone flew for a few minutes and returned to the independent palace where the disciples of the 100 Empire ranking temporarily lived, Dongfang Ting looked at Chen Hao and then at Helian Wuxi and said, "Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun together. Helian Wuxi alone." Chen Hao said straightforwardly. He looked at Helian Wuxi and said, "Go to the room and wait for me. I'll talk to the two of them first. Let's go." Hearing Chen Hao's words, Helian Wuxi and the others were slightly stunned. Immediately, Helian Wuxi finally spoke. Her voice naturally carried a bone-chilling coldness as she said, "I don't need to talk anymore. I don't care about any conditions. I'll go and cultivate first." After Helian Wuxi finished speaking, she turned and walked towards a palace. "Xiao Wu, you really don't want to talk?" At this moment, Chen Hao suddenly said. He recovered his voice and a smile appeared on his ordinary face. "I wish everyone a happy Mid-Autumn Festival and a happy National Day. Wushan is now on the way to Chengdu. I really can't explode. I can only apologize to everyone." Chapter 267. Helian Wuxi's heart skipped a beat. She turned around abruptly and looked at Chen Hao with a trace of surprise and doubt in her cold eyes. Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun's expressions changed too. That familiar voice, who else could it be but Chen Hao? Although they had not seen each other for 2 years and Chen Hao's voice had changed slightly, Helian Wuxi, Mo Yui, and Dongfang Jun could still recognize it. However, the aura and appearance of the person in front of them were completely different. "Wait for me in the room. I'll talk to little Mo and Dongfang Jun first," Chen Hao said to Helian Wuxi. After speaking, he took the lead and walked towards the palace. Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun looked at each other and followed. "Senior sister he is. Shoo. Just wait for him to talk to you." Dongfang Ting smiled and stopped Helian Wuzi. After speaking, she brought the other 2 disciples of the Xuanwu Empire to a room. These 2 disciples were far from Helian Wuzi and the other 2 in terms of strength and realm, but they were also quite outstanding in this year's 100 Empire ranking. However, Chen Hao did not have any relationship with them. It was not important whether he could win them over. What was important was that he did not want them to know Chen Hao's identity. Chen Hao? Boss. After stepping into the room, Chen Hao's aura suddenly changed and he took off the 1,000 illusion mask. Dongfang Jun and Mo Yui immediately cried out in surprise. What's there to be surprised about? I want to hide from some people, so I hid my identity. Boss, you offended someone powerful? Mo Yui interrupted Chen Hao and frowned. He could not help but emit a fierce murderous aura. Why are you so agitated? We can't help anyone who can make boss hide. We can only add to the trouble. However, Chen Hao, boss, did you offend someone powerful? Although Ant did not say it clearly, I can feel. Dongfang Jun said. I've already killed him. Don't worry. I just want to go and train. I don't want the sect behind him to know his whereabouts at all times. Well, I'll be leaving soon, so I'll make a long story short. Although the star-picking sect was only a 3rd-grade sect, they had an advantage before reaching the Golden Elixir realm. Hence, the competition was very fierce. Therefore, the 2 of you should do your best to fight for a place in the 100 Empire ranking. Firstly, you need to win the sect master's reward. Secondly, you need to fight for your own luck. Today, I saw the disciples on the 100 Empire ranking. The 2 of you are 3rd and 4th. There is still hope. After entering the sect, senior sister Dongfang Ting will explain everything to you. This is for the 2 of you. As Chen Hao spoke, he took out 2 storage rings that he had prepared and placed them in front of Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun. What is it? They're things that can be used for cultivation, such as pills, spirit weapons, and ultimate techniques. I chose it based on the 2 of you, so it should be useful. Once you arrive at the star-seizing sect, find Yang Fan Li Yifeng, and Ni Jianpain, and come directly to my mountain peak to cultivate. Alright, the 2 of you still have to compete tomorrow. Go and cultivate. I'll leave directly later. I won't bother you anymore. Chen Hao said. Mo Yui still wanted to say something, but Dongfang Jun directly pulled him back and said, Alright then, quickly go and see little Wu Hehe. We'll talk about it after you return to the star-picking sect. You. When Chen Hao appeared in front of Helian Wuzi, her delicate body trembled slightly. She wanted to say something, but stopped. She stared blankly at the extraordinarily handsome Chen Hao. 2 years. In these 2 years, she had been cultivating crazily all the time in order to step into the cultivation world and catch up with his footsteps. Especially when she heard that Tantai Lian and he had obtained the inheritance of the Phoenix at the same time. She became even crazier. And now, she finally met him. Why, you don't recognize me? Chen Hao smiled slightly and stared at Helian Wuzi's beautiful little face. Faintly, Chen Hao caught a trace of a strange aura from Helian Wuzi's eyes. I don't recognize you. Helian Wuzi turned her face away and said. She looked away with a trace of imperceptible excitement in her eyes. Then I'll beat you until you recognize me. Come, let me see what realm you're in. Chen Hao said with a slight smile. You're already in the late stage of the Golden Core realm. You still want to bully me? Helian Wuzi turned her head and said. Are you weak? Chen Hao said. You can tell? When Helian Wuzi heard Chen Hao say fight, her heart was even more excited. But now when she heard Chen Hao say so, her eyes widened in surprise. Nothing can hide from me. Do you want to fight? If you don't, then tell me what's going on. I'm very curious. In the 2 years in the secular world, what exactly did you encounter to be so strong? Chen Hao said. Tell me first, how can you tell? Helian Wuzi said. Intuition. Not to mention you. I can even feel an expert of the nascent soul realm. Tell me quickly, what's going on? Chen Hao urged. When Chen Hao came to Dragon Elephant City and heard the news about Helian Wuzi, he was only surprised. Especially those disciples who were discussing. None of them could accurately tell Helian Wuzi's realm. Originally, Chen Hao only thought that these low-level disciples had limited eyesight. But after seeing Helian Wuzi and talking to Dongfang Ting, He understood that it wasn't that those disciples had low eyesight, but even Elder Wu and the other sect elders couldn't see through her. Similarly, what surprised Chen Hao even more was that even he couldn't see through her. How strong was his soul perception? I don't know. You don't know? Yes. I didn't encounter any powerful legacy, but what? I can't tell you. Unless you defeat me. I only know that my current realm should be in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, Helian Wuzi said. In fact, even if Chen Hao defeated her, she couldn't say why. Everything came out of nowhere. Cough cough. Chen Hao almost choked. Although he felt that Helian Wuzi definitely had a shocking improvement, it was more likely that she had obtained some kind of powerful treasure that could make her aura become so mysterious. But no matter what, Chen Hao didn't expect Helian Wuzi to have improved to a realm that he couldn't even reach. This was a bit unbelievable. This time, I'll definitely defeat you. Helian Wuzi glared at Chen Hao. She spoke with her head held high. Come. This. Little Wu, I think we should forget it. If you can't say, how can I force you? I have something important to do now. And I've already told little Mo and Dongfang Jun. After meeting you, I'll leave. You want to run? I really have something important to do. If you don't believe me, you can ask little Mo and the rest. Chen Hao said. But seeing that Helian Wuzi's aura was slowly changing and didn't have any intention of letting him go, he hurriedly said again. How about a year later? A year later, I'll give you a chance to take revenge. The realm difference is too big. If you really want to fight, I won't fight back. Rascal. Well, I'll wait for you for a year. A year later, if the realm difference is even bigger, I don't care. Okay. If that's the case, I'll let you take it back. That's settled. This is for you. No, it seems to be useless. What is it? Helian Wuzi directly took it from Chen Hao's hands and asked. At the same time, she used her mind to explore the storage ring that Chen Hao had erased. After seeing the things inside, she said, what I lack the most now are elixirs. I need a lot of them for cultivation, but they're not very useful. Don't tell me you don't know that your realm needs to start using primordial crystal stones. Primordial crystal stones? Helian Wuzi was slightly stunned. These are all for you. Seeing Helian Wuzi's expression, Chen Hao was sure that Helian Wuzi was ignorant, just like him. There was no other way. The foundation of Jinyuan Kingdom was too weak after all. Moreover, Helian Wuzi definitely did not reveal her realm. Otherwise, she would definitely know about primordial crystal stones. Compared to the genius disciples of some powerful kingdoms, her knowledge was indeed far inferior. Don't waste elixirs in the future. Above the golden core realm, the spirit chi of heaven and earth contained in elixirs is not very useful anymore. Only primordial crystal stones are useful. Now that you're in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, it's best if you can use mid-grade primordial crystal stones. But I don't have much of that stuff. I'll give you more than half of it. I'll also give you more than half of the low-grade primordial crystal stones. Also, after arriving at the star-picking sect, you can hide your nascent soul realm for the time being. But you can reveal your golden core realm at the appropriate time. You can strive to obtain the qualifications for the 4th level of the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven. Without any hesitation, Chen Hao gave her more than half of his rations, leaving only a small portion. Do you have enough? Helian Wuzi looked at the pieces of primordial crystal stones that contained boundless energy floating out, and asked with warmth in her heart. If someone else gave it to her, she would definitely not accept it. But she would not reject Chen Hao's. It's enough. When you familiarize yourself with the cultivation world, you'll know that people like me are most likely to meet people who give me wealth. Chen Hao said with a slight smile. An hour later, Chen Hao put on the 1,000 illusion mask. Harboring a puzzled but very good mood, he left the mountain peak where the 100 Empire ranking disciples resided with Dongfang Ting. Dongfang Ting returned directly to the inn, and Chen Hao asked about the situation of returning to the secular world, and walked directly to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's VIP reception room. There are 4 possibilities for this situation. The first is that she obtained a powerful legacy, but since she said that she didn't, this situation can be ruled out. The second is bloodline awakening. The so-called bloodline awakening requires her to be born with a strong bloodline concentration of some kind of powerful life form. Once awakened, her body's strength will have an astonishing increase. There's a possibility of this, but it's not great, because I didn't feel any bloodline power. The third is turning into a mortal. Many cultivators, when their cultivation reaches a very high realm and they encounter an unbreakable bottleneck, will reincarnate and be reborn as a human. Although it's very similar to reincarnation, there are some differences, because they can recover their past memories after passing the mystery of being in the womb. The possibility of this is not great. If it's true, she should have recovered her memories by now. Otherwise, it's impossible for her to improve so quickly. And she doesn't even know what a primal crystal stone is. Obviously, she's not playing dumb with you. In fact, there's no need to play dumb with you. The mysterious existence in Chen Hao's mind said as he walked toward the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's VIP reception room. What about the fourth possibility? Chen Hao asked. Sorry I'm updating so late. I can only write one chapter today. I've just arrived at my relative's house, so I have no choice. I'll try to make up for it tomorrow. Chapter 268. The fourth possibility, which is also the most likely one, is that she has awakened the power of reincarnation, said the mysterious existence. The power of reincarnation? You mean she isn't? Chen Hao's expression changed slightly as he asked. She is still her. All life forms in this world have reincarnation. Unless one's body and soul are destroyed and their soul imprint completely vanishes, when one's life ends, it is the beginning of reincarnation. A few lifetimes, even dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of lifetimes exist. Every reincarnation, because the soul imprint is the same, the strength of the soul does not change much. But every time one reincarnates, the power of reincarnation in the soul imprint will strengthen a little. However, those who can awaken the power of reincarnation are few and far between. Her situation is very suitable for this. Reincarnation, among the 3,000 great Tao's, is second only to fate, karma, and wish. It is mysterious and unfathomable. It gathers the essence of the comprehension of the heavenly Tao in every lifetime. Once it is awakened, some heavenly Tao laws and cultivation mantras will appear in the soul from time to time. It is as if the heavens have descended. Even she herself does not know what is going on. Isn't that too powerful? Chen Hao was shocked. It is very powerful. But everything has its pros and cons. In 2 years, she was able to advance to the late-stage nascent soul realm in the secular world. At least this means that she has surpassed the nascent soul realm in one lifetime. Only when her speed of advancement slows down, and she has to rely on her own comprehension, will she reach her limit. At that time, she can only rely on herself. And because of the influence of the power of reincarnation, her highest realm may be limited to when the power of reincarnation is exhausted. Instead, it will become her shackles. Fortunately, she has you. You don't have to worry too much. What do you mean? The great reincarnation art. When she is restricted, you can teach her the great reincarnation art. Others may not be able to cultivate it, but it is much easier for those who have awakened the power of reincarnation. The chances of success are very high. Once she cultivates it, she will be able to use her own reincarnation to connect to the great reincarnation Tao. Her achievements will be limitless. It's here. In the imperial palace of the Xuanwu Empire, the Emperor, Mu Qing, Zhao Xingchen of the Jinyuan Kingdom, and other important figures who were waiting for the news of the 100 Empire ranking were all excited when they saw the mysterious aura that suddenly flashed from the teleportation array. Without a doubt, the 100 Empire rankings should have ended. However, after a flash of light, everyone's eyes widened. Chen Hao. Chen Jinren? Everyone thought that the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, who was in charge of the 100 Empire ranking, had sent a message. They never thought that the person who would appear in the transmission array would be Chen Hao. Their faces were filled with surprise and joy. In the entire Xuanwu Empire, after Chen Hao stepped into the cultivation world, no one knew better than the people present how strong the aura of the royal bloodline had become. In particular, Chen Hao's bloodline aura had grown at an unbelievable speed in just 2 years. As a result, the entire Xuanwu Empire's providence increased tremendously. Greetings, Shenren Chun. After a brief moment of surprise, the Emperor, Mu Qing, Zhao Xingqian, and the others all bowed to Chen Hao without exception. Their expressions were respectful and reverent, with a trace of respect from the bottom of their hearts. Chen Hao's deeds in the cultivation world were already known to the disciples of the cultivation world when they rushed over to prepare for the 100 Empire ranking. Although it wasn't all of it, it was enough to shock them. What kind of providence could such a super genius bring to the Empire? No one could imagine. Everyone, no need to be so polite. I'm returning to my family to settle some personal matters. The 100 Empire ranking should end the day after tomorrow. Looking at everyone's expressions, Chen Hao forcibly suppressed the word senior and said, Chen Jinren, is there anything we can help you with? The Emperor of the Xuanwu Empire asked hurriedly. Chen Hao shook his head and smiled. I'm just visiting my parents. I only have one day, so I won't talk much with you. You don't have to worry about the 100 Empire ranking this time. The champion will definitely be Helian Wuxia. Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun will be in the top 5 if nothing unexpected happens. The other two are also outstanding. Hearing Chen Hao's words, everyone was excited. Although they were already sure that the results of this 100 Empire ranking would be very good, they didn't expect it to be so good. Especially Zhao Xingqian of the Jinyuan Kingdom. His old face was a mess of excitement. Chen Hao exchanged a few pleasantries under everyone's enthusiasm and directly left. 4 hours later, Jinyuan Kingdom, Cloud State City. A handsome figure appeared in the void as fast as lightning. This figure was Chen Hao. Returning to the secular world once his 2 million level 8 spirit pills. Ordinary cultivators really can't afford it. And this is with the help of the Xuanwu Empire's transportation array. Chen Hao said with a sigh. The cultivation world and the secular world didn't only have the restrictions of the heavenly Tao's laws, but also the restrictions of the cultivation world. Once violated, anyone would be punished, and the sect couldn't protect them. Because this was a convention jointly set by the entire cultivation world. Only the 100 Empire ranking, which connected the secular world and the cultivation world, had the privilege to enter the secular world. Just like Xian Dongfangting, and the others back then. Chen Hao was a disciple of the 100 Empire ranking. Being able to use the transportation array of his empire saved him a lot of money. However, even so, ordinary cultivators would not be able to bear the burden of such a thing. Chen Hao had already learned about the Xiao family's recent situation from Dongfangting. But at this moment, he was still slightly surprised when he sensed the vigorous aura of the Xiao family. Although it couldn't be compared to the cultivation world, this aura actually faintly overshadowed the aura of the Xuanwu Empire's capital. In particular, Chen Hao's bloodline was inextricably linked to the Jinyuan Kingdom, Cloud State, and the Xiao family through the imperial bloodline of the empire. He could clearly sense that the imperial bloodline's aura was countless times denser than before he left, filling the area below the Xiao family. This caused the spirit qi of heaven and earth within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers to automatically gather here. It was like the aura of a king worshipped by thousands of Buddhas and mountains. The imperial bloodline is actually a kind of luck that comes from one's bloodline. Even with my current realm, I can't grasp its mysteries. Chen Hao thought to himself and restrained his aura. He didn't want to cause too much of a stir when he returned to the secular world. And time was pressing. He had to leave after meeting his parents. His most important purpose was to give the nameless old man's memory crystal to his father. I hope you can help me investigate my mother's situation carefully. Chen Hao said in his mind after locking on the location of his parents. Try your best. I'm your magic weapon, restricted by your realm. The only thing I'm better than you is my knowledge. You can only touch things related to life, souls, and soul imprints when you reach the creator realm. So, even if I can sense something now, there's nothing I can do. I understand. But I have to know what I'm doing. Father may not tell me, Chen Hao said. Just as Chen Hao appeared in the sky above Cloud State, his father, who was drinking tea and admiring flowers with his mother in the small courtyard pavilion, frowned slightly and looked up at the void. What's wrong, Ahai? Mother noticed Chen Hao's strange behavior and asked. Nothing. I suddenly feel that our Tianxi is coming back, Chunhai said with a smile. Really? Don't lie to me, Chunhao's mother asked excitedly. Chunhao's mother didn't know when it started, but Chunhai had become a half-immortal in her heart, as if he could predict the future. Every time he said he had a feeling, it would definitely become true. That was why she was so excited after hearing Chunhai's words. None of her 3 children were by her side now. Chun Yan and Chun Nan had just entered the royal new show hall, and could come back to see her often. But what about Chun Hao? Although Chun Hao was not her biological son, she cared about Chun Hao the most. She didn't know what the other world was like. She only knew that it was her son who changed the fate of the family, and became a supreme existence, rising to a height that she couldn't understand at all. When the big shots in the whole Jinyuan kingdom, and even the whole Xuanwu Empire saw her, they had to bow respectfully. But this was not what she wanted. She only wanted to see her son every day. Wasn't it good to have a happy family? But she could only keep these words in her heart. No matter how much she missed her son, she couldn't say it, because she was afraid that it would affect her son's future. Well, it should be, Chunhai said with great certainty. Frowning, he thought to himself, why did Tianxi come back at this time? With his current realm, at best he has reached the golden elixir realm. He doesn't have the ability to come back. If he goes through the Chamber of Commerce, it will cost a lot of money. Is there something important? Chunhai felt a faint sense of uneasiness. Ame, what are you doing? At this moment, Chunhao's mother suddenly stood up. Chunhai hurriedly stopped her. I'll go to the door to pick up Tianxi. No need. Tianxi will be here in a while. You go and prepare his favorite dishes, Chunhai said. Dad. Just a moment after Chunhao's mother was sent away, Chunhao's figure appeared silently in front of his father, and called out in a low voice. In fact, when his mother stood up in surprise, Chunhao had already arrived above them. But his father's words made him not appear for the time being. Looking at his mother's happy face, who seemed to be a few years younger, and trotted to cook, Chunhao wished he could appear directly in front of her. But in order to talk to his father about private matters, he had to hold back for the time being. Chunhai stared at Chunhao for half a minute and said, the late stage of golden elixir realm, the first heaven of sword principle, the phenomenon of wind and cloud. In only 2 years you can make such progress in a 3rd grade sect. It's beyond my expectation, Dad. Chunhao suddenly opened his eyes wide in surprise. At this moment he didn't want to alarm anyone, so he completely restrained his breath. However, he was still seen through by his father with a single glance. If it was just this, Chunhao wouldn't be too surprised. However, the first level of the sword Dao that his father spoke of, the phenomenon of wind and clouds, was a term that Chunhao had never heard of. At my relative's house, it's a mess. I've only written 1 chapter since this morning. I can't calm down at all. Wuxian will continue to work hard. It's hard to say whether I can make up for it today. I'm really sorry. I'll try my best. Chapter 269. What is the first heaven of sword principle? Chunhao couldn't help but ask. The first heaven of sword principle is the way for a swordsman to divide the realm of sword essence into 9 heavens. Your sword essence has reached the peak of the first heaven of sword principle. With the same strength, your attack power can be doubled under the effect of sword essence. Every time you break through to the next heaven, your attack power will be doubled. That is to say, your attack power can be doubled now, but when you break through to the 2nd heaven, it will be quadrupled, and when you break through to the 3rd heaven, it will be quadrupled. This is the real strength of a swordsman. The further you go, the more terrifying it will be. As long as your realm of sword principle is high enough, you can kill a practitioner of the same level in seconds, and it is not difficult to challenge someone of a higher level. Of course, this is measured by ordinary practitioners, and a genius disciple with special talent is another matter. You mean, sword essence can also be improved? Yes. In addition to the 9 heavens of sword principle, there are many kinds of sword essences. Destruction sword principle, creation sword principle, slaughter sword principle, dominating sword principle, soft sword principle, proud sword principle, ethereal sword principle, dreamy sword principle, mountain river sword principle, secular sword principle, emotionless sword principle, immortal sword principle. These sword essences can be comprehended by practicing the corresponding sword principle Heart Sutra. Oh, Father, what is the first heaven of sword principle? Chen Hao asked. The first heaven of sword principle is something related to luck, and I can only catch a trace of it. In short, you have already fulfilled some of the requirements. Wherever you are, it will definitely not be calm and peaceful, nor will the winds and clouds converge. A hidden dragon in the abyss will either turn into a dragon or fall. If you can stand out, you will be able to soar to the 9th heaven. I can't give you any advice. Well, you came back at this time because of me, right? Did you meet her, the nameless old man? Chen Hai changed the topic and said, Yes. Father, I'm sorry, I couldn't hide it from her. Chen Hao said, She also knows something about you. Tell me. I was already mentally prepared. I should have known that you wouldn't be able to hide anything from her. I just didn't expect it to be so fast. Chen Hai's brows were tightly knitted, but he still spoke frankly. Chen Hao's expression made him realize that there might be more to the matter than he had expected. She asked me to pass this to you. I don't know what it is either. Chen Hao said in a low voice, hiding it from the treasure-hunting sword spirit and the mysterious existence. As he spoke, he passed the memory crystal that he had extracted from the nameless old man's soul to his father. Sure enough, as he had expected, his father's expression changed greatly the moment he saw the memory crystal, and his eyes widened in shock. She said that if you don't want to see her, she'll never see you and mother again in this lifetime. But she told me to tell father. Chen Hai's hands were trembling. His brows were tightly knitted. He seemed to be in extreme pain as he held up the memory crystal and said, Speak. She hopes that father can fulfill his responsibilities as a father. She also has your flesh and blood. What? Chen Hai's eyes widened in shock. He looked at Chen Hao and said, How could she have my child? How could it be? Although she and I are husband and wife, we have never. Chen Hai suddenly realized that the person in front of him was his son, so he quickly shut up. But the expression on his face was obviously full of doubts, puzzlement, and shock. When Chen Hao heard his father's words, he felt a headache coming. If he hadn't seen Chen Shui, he might have other thoughts. But now, not to mention anything else, just Chen Shui's appearance was enough to prove everything. What's more, Chen Shui and her sister Chen Yan had some characteristics of his father. And the bloodline aura contained in the traces of life was exactly the same. Chen Hao was sure of this. After a slight hesitation, Chen Hao looked at his father, who was in deep thought and pain. He couldn't help but say, Father, I have seen my sister. Her name is Chen Shui. She looks exactly like Yan, and Chen Shui. Shui. How old is she? 21. 21. She has been pregnant for 162 years. I should have thought of it. Only she would do such a thing. Chen Hai said with a trembling voice. Father, can you tell me what's going on? What's the matter with my mother? Chen Hai looked at Chen Hao, shook his head, and said, You don't have to worry about these things. The situation is far more complicated than you think. You can't help now. Although I have never asked you, I know that you are a person who doesn't want to be under others. Since you have chosen this path, you must go down it without any distractions and worries. Tell Daddy about the situation after you stepped into the world of cultivation. Chen Hao thought for a moment, and briefly told his experience after entering the cultivation world. Chen Hai listened quietly. With his knowledge, he could naturally feel that Chen Hao was special, but he didn't ask much. How could he not know his own son? Chen Hao's origins had always been a mystery that even he couldn't understand at all. Naturally, Chen Hao also had countless secrets. That's about it. When I go back this time, I will start to gain experience. 1 year later, I want to participate in the inter-sect competition, Chen Hao said. The inter-sect competition that is held once every 10 years. Only core disciples were qualified to participate in this competition. That is to say, within a year, you have to reach the nascent soul realm. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Chen Hai frowned slightly and said, Since you have decided, then work hard. The divine punishment from the elixir realm to the nascent soul realm is fatal for most people. But for you, it can only be regarded as a test at best. If you can accumulate patiently, you will be stronger when you reach the nascent soul realm. However, there is no need to worry about this. If you haven't decided where to go, I suggest you go to the Mirage Desert. The Mirage Desert. Yes. The Mirage Desert is in the middle of the Eastern Continent, the Western Continent, and the Southern Island Group. It is a very famous area for gaining experience, and it is very suitable for super geniuses of the Elixir realm and the nascent soul realm to gain experience. If you go, you can see the real super geniuses. It is a little dangerous, but without danger, it can't be considered an experience. More importantly, in the Mirage Desert, every 100 years, an ancient ruin would open and appear above the desert like a mirage. This was also the origin of the name of the Mirage Desert. If I remember correctly, it will open in about a month. It's very suitable for you. You can consider it. Alright, that's it. Push me over and have a meal with your mother. She's worried about you the most. The meal lasted for 2 hours. Different from his father, his mother asked about Chunhao's well-being. She wanted to know everything about Chunhao in the world of cultivation. Chunhao didn't think his mother was long-winded at all. As long as his mother asked, he didn't hide anything. He accompanied his mother until the transmission token was about to be activated. Then he said goodbye to his parents and quickly flew to the wilderness. He didn't disturb anyone and left the world of cultivation. Before leaving, Chunhao gave his father a storage ring and let his father distribute it. How is it? Chunhao couldn't wait to ask in his mind after being transmitted back to the world of cultivation. I can't see. With my current ability, I don't dare to check your father. But your mother's soul is protected by layers of restrictions. I can't see through it for the time being. I'm afraid you will have to wait until you can fuse with me to the 5th realm to see through it. The mysterious existence said. The 5th realm? Chunhao murmured and shook his head helplessly. Every time he saw his father, he thought he could get closer, but he found that he was getting farther and farther away. What did the fusion of the 5th realm mean? Golden core, nascent soul, incarnation, nascent soul, creation. Every time he advanced to the next realm, Chunhao's fusion with the mysterious existence would improve. This meant that Chunhao had to be at least in the creation realm to complete the fusion of the 5th realm. Moreover, even if he completed the fusion of the 5th realm, it was only a possibility, not a certainty. What kind of existence was his father? The creation realm was a realm that not even the sect leader level authorities had reached. At least the star-picking sect master's cultivation hadn't reached it. But you don't have to worry about your mother. There won't be any problems within 100 years. That's good. It seems that my father didn't really give up everything like I thought. Or because I stepped into the cultivation world, he picked it up again? Whatever, as long as nothing happens for the time being. Chunhao thought to himself. His eyes shone brightly, and he temporarily cut off the reverie in his heart. Food had to be eaten one bite at a time, and roads had to be taken one step at a time. Unrealistic ambition would only affect one's state of mind. Since he couldn't help his parents, he could only put it aside for the time being. Let's get out of here first. I'd like to see what realm I can reach in a year's time. Whoosh. Chunhao turned into a stream of light and walked directly out of the transmission array used by the Heavenly Armament Pavilion to connect to the secular world. He didn't look at the situation of the 100 Empire rankings. There was no suspense in the results. Whether it was Helian Wuxi, Mo Yui, or Dongfang Jun, there was nothing to worry about. Especially Helian Wuxi. Not to mention the 100 Empire rankings. Even if she participated in the Dragon Transformation list, she could win first place. The Mirage Desert is in the south of the Taishan Mountains. It's nearly 10 million miles away from here. It's impossible to fly there. After Chunhao walked out of the transmission array, he didn't leave the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. A map of the cultivation world of the Eastern Continent appeared in his mind, and he determined his route. With his father's advice, he didn't have to choose a place to gain experience. Moreover, after Atota's analysis, the Mirage Desert was indeed one of the best places to go. Especially the ancient ruins in the Mirage Desert, which only appeared once every 100 years. It was very rare. The closest city to the Taishan Mountains is Taishan City. Along the way, I have to pass through here. There are hundreds of cities. It will take nearly 2 days to travel by transmission array. Is this the Mirage Desert? Her blue dress fluttered in the air as she stared at the boundless desert and muttered. Write 1 chapter. I'll update first. I can't guarantee that I'll update in the next few days. When the time comes, I'll settle the accounts. But no matter how many chapters 10, Wuxian will make up for it. I hope everyone can understand. At the end of last month, Wuxian already said that before the middle of this month, it will be very tragic. I'll return to Kunming on the 10th, go to Nanjing on the 12th to attend the annual meeting of the publishing house, and return to Kunming on the 17th. It's only half a month. After returning, Wuxian will go into seclusion and work hard to update. Chapter 270. This beautiful figure was Chen Shui. Looking down from the sky, there were many sand dunes and valleys. There were also some dilapidated ancient ruins and ancient cities that emitted a dazzling golden light under the sun. So. Chen Shui sensed that there were at least 100 cultivators with powerful auras within 1,000 miles. This is the outer area of the Mirage Desert. If we continue to approach the core, we will reach the protective barrier formed by the sandstorm. If you can enter, then follow me. If you can't, then leave quickly. Don't stay here for too long in case you are killed by other cultivators. Senior Wang, is it really that serious? Our Spirit Serpent Valley is a rank 9 sect. Don't think that a rank 9 sect can do anything. Not to mention our Spirit Serpent Valley, even the disciples of the Yuan Gate would be killed here. The Mirage Desert gathers cultivators from the eastern and western continents and the southern sea islands. Those who dare to come here are all geniuses among geniuses. There are countless disciples from powerful sects and super geniuses from the Demon Dao and the Demon Dao. Even I have to be careful. Oh, Senior Wang, is it really that difficult to enter? Very difficult. The Mirage Desert is also known as the City in the Sky. It only opens once every 100 years. According to the records of the sect, only Golden Core Realm and Nascent Soul Realm cultivators under the age of 30 can enter. Those with a low cultivation base, high cultivation base, or over the age limit will not be able to enter. Then we are all within the criteria. The basic criteria are met, but you have to pass the City in the Mirage Desert test. Only those who are ranked above 1,000 will be able to enter. Relatively speaking, Golden Core Realm cultivators like you have less chances than Nascent Soul Realm cultivators. But the Mirage Desert test does not depend on one's cultivation level. The most important thing is potential. You will know when you participate in the test. Let's go, there are still 10 days. I think many people have already arrived. Ruochen, you will see the super geniuses of the Western continent and the Southern Sea Islands in this trial. Don't limit your vision to Chu Qingtian of the Yuan Gate and Gu Xing of the Sky Sword sect. The competition between the sects will end 1 year later. Now you are representing the top geniuses of the Eastern continent. You are on the same side. Competition is fine, but we can't kill each other. Originally, if Xia Yuyu had not advanced to the Incarnation Realm, the 4 of you should have been able to obtain a decent harvest. Unfortunately, she had lost the right. It's up to the 3 of you now. This time, the Yuan Gate's Chu Qingtian is in charge. You don't have to be so calculative. It isn't that he's stronger than you, and it's just that the Origin Gate is stronger. During the Mirage Realm test, try your best to aim for the highest ranking. Don't hide your strength. This is related to the fate of the Eastern continent and your own. It would be even better if he could defeat Chu Qingtian and Gu Xing in terms of ranking. Furthermore, the higher your ranking, the more opportunities you will encounter in the area you enter. Don't worry, I will do my best. Whether it's Chu Qingtian or Gu Xing, they can forget about beating me. Dozens of disciples of the Heavenly Sword sect were flying in the Mirage Land Desert, and a late-stage nascent Soul Realm youth said to Wu Ruochen. Although his combat strength was no longer comparable to Wu Ruochen's, his age and experience made him the leader of the Sky Sword sect to participate in the Mirage Desert. 3 days later, when Chen Hao appeared in the Mirage Desert, he saw thousands of Golden Core Stage and Nascent Soul Stage disciples gathered together outside a sandstorm barrier that blotted out the sky. These disciples were all super geniuses of the Eastern continent. Although his father didn't tell Chen Hao about the Mirage Desert, there were very detailed records of it in the sect's information. The Mirage Desert was a city in the sky that opened once every 100 years. It was definitely a competition between the super geniuses of the Eastern and Western continents and the Southern Sea Islands. What could one obtain in the city? Life or death? It depended on each person's fate, but the competition would start before entering the city in the sky. That was the ranking pagoda. It was a competition between one's own fate and the fate of the continent they belonged to. However, including the 6th grade sects, very few people from the low-grade sects participated. It wasn't that they couldn't or didn't want to, but it was useless even if they went. They wouldn't be able to enter the top 1,000. These low-grade sects would only remind their disciples to go if they were truly super geniuses. There are so many people. Chen Hao stared at the thousands of young disciples and was slightly shocked. Whether it was the Golden Core Realm or the Nascent Soul Realm, their auras were extremely powerful. They were definitely super geniuses in the same realm. Only a small part of them were rogue cultivators. Most of them were disciples of the sects sitting together. Most of them were super geniuses of the 7th grade sects and above. Chen Hao didn't completely conceal his aura and landed at the back of the crowd. A disciple of the star-picking sect? That's funny. A 3rd grade sect with a late-stage Golden Core Realm disciple dares to come to the Mirage Desert. Before Chen Hao appeared, he had changed into the star-picking robe that symbolized his identity as a disciple of the star-picking sect. The reason for this was very simple. He was a member of the star-picking sect, and also a member of the Eastern continent. If he wanted to win providence for himself, he could only be himself openly. Don't underestimate him. He should be Chen Hao, who has been the talk of the town recently. Chen Hao. The Chen Hao who killed Fan Fong and saved Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan from the Red Flame Beast? He must be. Otherwise, who would dare to come to the star-picking sect? As the people around discussed, everyone's attention was focused on them. The nascent soul realm experts who didn't take Chen Hao seriously looked over and used their minds to check him out. Fan Fong, who was half a step away from the nascent soul realm, was quite famous in the cultivation world. Whether it was talent or combat strength, he was comparable to the super geniuses of the 8th grade sections. He was not much inferior to the super geniuses of the 9th grade sections. Chen Hao was able to kill him when he was only at the late-stage Golden Core Realm. The commotion he caused was huge, especially when the Ling Tian sect came out to protect him. He's here too? Chen Shui saw Chen Hao immediately. She was sitting cross-legged at the back of the crowd alone. Her aura was cold, her graceful figure, and her beautiful face hidden under the black veil was exceptionally eye-catching. However, some people who came forward to invite her to join their team were coldly rejected by Chen Shui. Even the experts at the peak of the late-stage nascent soul realm were no exception. If it was any other time or place, someone would have flipped out. However, no one dared to cause trouble at this time. At least before entering the Sky City, no one dared to cause trouble. This was because every force represented the Eastern continent's honor. Those who could come here naturally knew the rules. Brother Chen, how have you been? Whoosh! Not long after Chen Hao sat down, 2 streaks of light flashed and flew in front of him. Duan Yufei cupped his fists and said with a smile on his face. Xiao Lanlan glared at Chen Hao. Her gaze was not friendly, but there was no hostility. Chen Hao smiled and stood up to return the greeting. I'm fine. Thank you for the help of Brother Duan's sect. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Duan Yufei smiled and shook his head. This has nothing to do with me. Brother Chen understands. Unfortunately, she won't be coming this time. Duan Yufei seemed to be implying something. So what if she comes? Some people are as timid as mice and don't even dare to recognize her. Xiao Lanlan glared at Chen Hao. Obviously, she already knew about Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu's meeting. She was very dissatisfied that Chen Hao didn't even have the courage to recognize her face to face. She was outspoken and her considerations were very simple. She didn't think about the interests of the sect and other big issues. In her opinion, since Yuyu was so good to Chen Hao should disregard everything and throw away everything. This was out of Chen Hao's expectations. He didn't expect Xia Yuyu and Xia Lanlan to have such a good relationship. Hearing Xia Lanlan's words, Duan Yufei pulled Xia Lanlan and stared at Chen Hao. Brother Chen, don't mind her. Lanlan is her best sister, and no one knows her better than her. Let's not talk about this. Brother Chen, this is our Ling Tian sex communication talisman. After you enter, if you encounter a dangerous place that you're not confident in, you can inform me and we'll explore together. It's very difficult to obtain the greatest benefits by yourself. All right. Chen Hao slightly hesitated, but he still took the communication talisman from Duan Yufei's hand and replied. After Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan left, Chen Shui suddenly stood up under the attention of many obscure gazes. Her figure flashed and arrived before Chen Hao. She glanced at Chen Hao through the black veil, and sat beside Chen Hao. The distance between them was only a foot, and they were practically shoulder to shoulder. This kind of rejoicing instantly made Chen Hao, who was already one of the focal points, attract even more attention, and cause a flurry of discussion. You broke through to the nascent soul stage so quickly? Chen Hao turned his head, and asked with a slightly surprised voice transmission. I've already reached the peak of the advanced stage of the golden core stage. What's there to be surprised about? Have you gone back? Chen Shui asked with a seemingly indifferent voice transmission. Yes. The matter is far more complicated than you and I imagined. I hope that you don't blame Father, at least before you know the truth. Father didn't even know of your existence. Even what? Father originally thought that he and your mother had never done the deed of husband and wife. How is that possible? Chen Shui was slightly surprised. I also thought that it was impossible. But when Father heard me mention you, he said it himself in shock. We don't know the specific situation. Father didn't tell me and didn't let me get involved. I can understand your feelings, but please trust my intuition. There's definitely an extremely great secret between Father, your mother, and my mother. I believe that Father can handle it well. What we have to do is just wait. Chen Hao said. Wait. Mother has waited for over 100 years. How long do we have to wait? Wait until her lifespan is exhausted? Your mother has at least 200 years of lifespan, right? What about my mother? Only 100 years. Do you know what happened between them? How much do you know? Your mother has bitterly searched for over 100 years. My mother, at least from as long as I can remember, has never eaten a full meal. Father is a cripple. What's laughable is that because of me, he was beaten into a cripple by a bully in a small town who can't even be considered a cultivator. I simply can't understand all of this. I also can't understand. You also can't understand. Hiss. Just as Chen Hao and Chen Shui were arguing with each other through voice transmission, a powerful aura suddenly came from the horizon and interrupted the two's conversation. Today is the last chapter. Blushing with shame, there's really no other way. When I return to Kunming, I'll start to repay the debt. No matter how much I owe, I'll repay it. I'll cover my face and escape. To be continued. If you like this work, I welcome you to come to Qidian. Chapter 271. Yuan Gates Chu Qingtian. Sky Sword Sex Gu Xing. Too powerful. Just this aura alone is enough to make me unable to resist. The four top geniuses are too powerful. Of course. Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, and Gu Xing are the three most monstrous geniuses of the top 10 sections. Although Xia Yuyu has surpassed them, it is only in terms of cultivation level. If nothing goes wrong, they will definitely trigger heaven's punishment and step into the incarnation realm. With their accumulation, they will not be in any danger after passing the heaven's punishment. I just don't know who will rank higher in this test. It will definitely be Chu Qingtian. A month ago, Chu Qingtian killed a peak early incarnation realm demonic cultivator. His combat power is unfathomable. It is said that he will be the commander of the Eastern continent for this trial in the Sky City. Senior brother, what does this commander mean? When I saw the information, I was very confused. Are we going to be restricted when we enter? This is a precious place for training. It is definitely impossible to restrict them completely. The main goal is to unite against the outside world. I also heard from the Great Elder that the Sky City opens once every 100 years. In fact, it is a clash between the geniuses of the Eastern Continent, Western Continent, and Southern Sea Islands. Other than our sect disciples, there are also many rogue cultivators and demonic cultivators. The competition is very intense, not only within the Eastern Continent, but also with the Western Continent and Southern Sea Islands. Therefore, in the past few hundred years, it has become a tradition. Every time the Sky City opens, the top 10 ranked 9 sects of the Eastern Continent will choose the strongest commander in advance. Once a group conflict occurs, we must unite against the outside world. Wu Ruochen, you are early. We agreed that the three of us will meet up, but you came alone. It seems that you are not convinced by me as the commander? Chu Qingtian and Gu Xing obviously came together. While they were still in the void, their eyes swept across the thousands of cultivators and locked onto Wu Ruochen in the crowd. His voice was not loud, but it was filled with a natural arrogance. It floated clearly into everyone's ears, and it was full of hostility. Convinced by you? Ridiculous. You are just the commander appointed by the top 10 sections. Everything depends on your strength. What right do you have to convince me? When the Sky City appears, I will defeat you in the Pagoda Tablet ranking. During the intersect competition, I will completely defeat you. Haha, you are overestimating yourself. I, Chu Qingtian, will let you know that I am worthy of my title as a commander. During the intersect competition, I will convince you even more. We'll see, Wu Ruochen said proudly. Disdain flickered in Chu Qingtian's eyes. He no longer paid attention to Wu Ruochen and swept his gaze across the crowd. A powerful pressure was released as he said, I'm Chu Qingtian from the Yuan Gate. I believe that most people here should know who I am. I won't waste any more words. This time, I, Chu Qingtian, am indebted to the Immortal Alliance for thinking highly of me and being appointed as the commander. Naturally, I have to consider the honor of the Eastern Continent. No matter who obtained the qualifications to enter, they would have to unite against the outside world. Once a large-scale conflict breaks out, I hope you won't shrink back. That will only weaken our strength. When Sky City appears and the qualified disciples are confirmed, they can come to me to receive a communication talisman. If you encounter a valuable treasure that you can't get your hands on, you can contact me. I'll choose to inform others to help you. I, Chu Qingtian, will make sure that you're satisfied with the distribution of benefits, especially Golden Core disciples. Obtaining the right to enter only proves that you have great potential, not that you are strong. To put it bluntly, you will only be trampled upon if you go in. Don't lose your life for profit. Did you hear that? Chen Shui sent a voice transmission to Chen Hao. I have more or less entered the nascent soul realm. Your late-stage Golden Core realm is too low. There are 500 to 600 peak-stage nascent soul realm cultivators here. There are 3,000 above the nascent soul realm. The rest are basically at the peak of the late-stage Golden Core realm and half-step nascent soul realm. After you go in, you have to be careful. You won't be a match for any late-stage nascent soul realm cultivator. Don't lose your life for treasures. My goal is to gain experience. As long as I don't snatch treasures, it won't be a big problem. As for you, even if you don't snatch treasures, I'm afraid you will be in a lot of trouble. Chen Hao looked at Chen Shui and said. Chen Hao knew that although those with great potential could enter the Mirage Desert, the most suitable ones were those at the peak of the late-stage nascent soul realm. After all, they would enter the same space. Even if a Golden Core realm cultivator ranked high in the test and could enter, they would only be trampled upon by those nascent soul realm cultivators. No matter how strong Chen Hao was, he couldn't change this fact. The only thing he could do was to keep a low profile and not fight for treasures. This was also the reason why there were more nascent soul realm cultivators than Golden Core realm cultivators. Furthermore, the Golden Core realm cultivators who came here basically came with the core disciples of the sect. I don't want anyone to see me, even Chu Qingtian, and the rest can forget about seeing me. Alright, let's cultivate and adjust ourselves to the best state. The city in the sky should appear soon. Don't hide during the test. Although the ranking isn't a symbol of one's strength, it is a symbol of one's luck. The higher the ranking, the better the region you will be transported to. Even if you just cultivate there, you will gain a lot. Chen Shui said. On the second day, at sunset, the sandstorm seal hundreds of miles away suddenly shone with a resplendent seven-colored light. An ancient and mysterious aura instantly spread out and woke up the cultivators who were sitting cross-legged. The seal is about to disappear. Phew. I must go in. Even if I don't gain anything, as long as I can enter, it will be an honor. It's time for the test. Although I am at the late-stage golden core realm, this is a test of my potential. I will definitely not be weaker than them. The disciples who did not have absolute confidence in entering gritted their teeth. Even the rank 9 sects did not have such a mysterious test to test one's potential. They could only judge a disciple's potential subjectively, and could not measure it specifically. However, the City in the Skies test could. There were close to 10,000 cultivators present. Basically, they were all super geniuses from rank 8 sects and above. There were very few lone cultivators like Chen Shui. Those from rank 3 sects like Chen Hao were even rarer. Even if they were ranked 1,000, it would definitely be an honor. There were a total of 3 entrances to the City in the Sky. The Eastern Mainland, the Western Mainland, and the South Sea Islands each had one. The number of cultivators gathered at the other 2 entrances was no less than that of the Eastern Mainland. It was equivalent to 1 in 10. Boom. After the 7-colored light lasted for half a minute, the terrifying sandstorm seal finally exploded and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Then, a mirage-like golden city appeared before everyone's eyes from afar. It emitted a grand, vast, and ancient aura. It was like the legendary Heavenly Palace, causing everyone to reveal excited expressions. At the same time, 307 colored light pillars instantly pierced through the void and split into 3 directions. There were 100 pillars in each direction, and they poured down from the City in the Sky. 100 identical blue towers appeared 100 miles away from Chen Hao and the rest. Each tower had 10 floors and exuded a mysterious aura. There were thunderous electric currents surrounding it that made crackling sounds from time to time. There was a huge silver tower tablet standing above the 100 palaces. Hiss 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 hiss. Just when everyone was still immersed in shock, the 100 testing towers suddenly released a mysterious light curtain that covered a radius of hundreds of miles, and all the cultivators were within it. 100 figures involuntarily rose into the sky and flew to the front of the 10 testing towers. The test had officially begun. Azure Valley Disciple Mu Tinghai. Heaven-piercing sect disciple, Yang Yan. Ling Tian sect disciple, Duan Yufei. Sectless cultivator, by Li Yan. As the 100 disciples reported their identities one by one, 100 silver lights flashed from the silver tower steel and entered the glabella of the 100 disciples. One by one, they took a deep breath and stepped into the testing tower with an excited and solemn expression to begin the test. How long will this test take? 100 people at a time and 10,000 people in total. I'm afraid it won't end in a few days. Chen Hao looked at Chen Shui and said, "Didn't you know the details before you came?" "No. I only read about it in the sect's information." "I don't know the details," Chen Hao said. 100 people will be tested each time. The test time varies. Those with poor potential will be eliminated in 2 to 3 minutes, while those with high potential will be eliminated for a longer time. However, it won't be more than 10 minutes. This is because the testing tower has a 1-minute time limit for each floor. According to past experience, those who can reach the 7th floor have the hope of obtaining the qualification to enter. The 8th floor is basically a piece of cake. Those who can reach the 10th floor and come out from the top of the tower are definitely true geniuses. There are basically a few people from the Eastern continent, Western continent, and Southern Sea Archipelago who can do it every time. However, the total number is not more than 20. Chen Shui said. After a slight pause, she continued, "This testing tower tests one's temperament, will, comprehension, combat talent, and physical talent. There are 5 aspects. Therefore, it places more emphasis on potential rather than strength. Otherwise, with so many people at the peak of the mastery nascent soul stage, we won't be qualified at all. Someone's coming out." After Chen Shui and Chen Hao spoke for a while, A cultivator was ejected from the second floor's exit. It was obvious that he did not even have the potential to step into the third floor. Ah, Zhao Chunfeng, with your potential, you should just kill yourself. You can't even reach the third floor and you still have the nerve to come out and embarrass yourself. Humph. Talk to me when you can reach the third floor. I'm at least at the second floor, and I'll pass in the last breath. It's good enough that you can reach the second floor. Fuck. If my ranking is higher than yours, will you kneel down and apologize to me? Sure. If your ranking is lower than mine, kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times. The ejected Zhao Chunfeng was a rogue cultivator at the peak of the late stage of the nascent soul realm. His strength was definitely strong. However, even he did not expect that he would be so embarrassing. What was even more embarrassing was that his sworn enemy actually looked down on him in public. This made him extremely embarrassed and angry. Soon more disciples were ejected. In less than 6 minutes, at least 80 people were ejected from the 5th floor. Of the remaining 20 people, more than 10 were ejected from the 7th floor. When they reached the 8th floor, only 4 people were left. Duan Yufei was one of them. Including today, I owe 9 chapters. I'm really sorry. It will probably return to normal around the 17th. At that time, Wuxian will try his best to repay the debt. For the next few days, please bear with it. I suggest that you don't wait for the next chapter and rest for the time being. Wuxian is also a reader and understands how painful this kind of update is. But there's really no other way. I'm extremely sorry. Chapter 272. 10th level. Amazing. Too amazing. As expected of a super genius from a grade 9 sect. How can Duan Yufei be so amazing? He was only ranked 9th among the inner court disciples in the Ling Tian sect. Now that he has just stepped into the nascent soul stage, could it be that he can still ascend to the top of the tower? In less than 9 minutes, the other 3 disciples were ejected one after another, while Duan Yufei stepped into the 10th level amidst the crowd's shocked voices. As a super genius ranked 9th among the inner court disciples of the grade 9 sect, Ling Tian sect, Duan Yufei's reputation in the Eastern Continent's cultivation world was not as famous as Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, Gu Xing, and Xia Yuyu, who were in the first column, but he was still one of the top in the second column. Even if the close to 10,000 disciples present did not know who he was, they all knew his name. However, according to the previous evaluations, Duan Yufei could at most reach the 9th level. However, he had actually stepped into the 10th level now. This kind of potential was absolutely shocking. In the crowd, Xia Lanlan's expression was obviously unusually excited. Her beautiful face was flushed with excitement, and she seemed to be even more excited than herself ascending to the 10th level. She clenched her fists tightly and prayed for Duan Yufei. However, it only lasted for 5 seconds before a ray of light appeared, and Duan Yufei was ejected from the 10th level amidst the crowd's exclamations. Hiss. At the same time, the Silver Tower monument shone with a dazzling light, and the ranking of the first batch of 100 disciples appeared before everyone's eyes. Duan Yufei, who had broken his wings on the 10th level, was at the top of the list. The 10th level is actually so amazing, no wonder there are only a few who can pass every time. The instant Duan Yufei was ejected, although his essence, energy, and spirit were completely replenished by the miraculous energy, he was covered in cold sweat. He clenched his teeth and relied on his extraordinary talent to successfully pass the 9th level, giving him incomparable confidence. Originally, he thought that according to the increasing pressure of each level, he would have a 50% chance of successfully ascending to the top of the 10th level. However, what he did not expect was that the strength of the 10th level completely exceeded his imagination. He did not persist for 5 seconds, and was instantly killed, without any results. Subsequently, another 100 people entered the testing tower at the same time. No one knew which batch they were in. There was no pattern to the selection of the testing tower. The location and stage were uncertain, so they could only wait patiently. All of them knew that they might be the next one, but they couldn't calm down and adjust their breathing. Their minds were stretched taut as they paid attention to the disciples entering the pagoda monument. The disciples who failed on the 7th floor were the most nervous. According to their experience, at least half of the disciples who failed on the 7th floor would not be able to enter the top 1,000. Moreover, it wasn't based on the length of time one could last on the 7th floor, but rather the results obtained. If no one else said anything, they could only wait for the ranking on the pagoda stele. On the first level, you'll meet an opponent who's as strong as you. The pressure, aura, and combat power were extremely similar to his own. The only thing missing was flexibility. On the second level, there would be two. Furthermore, the two of them work together seamlessly. Their battle prowess is at least 3 times that of yours. You have to find their weakness in the shortest amount of time and destroy it. Without sufficient combat talent and experience, it was impossible to achieve such a feat. The 3rd floor becomes 4, the 4th floor becomes 8, and so on. When you reach the 10th floor, you will have 500 or 2 opponents. Chen Shui said. It can't be? 500 or 2 opponents with the same strength as him. And it's perfectly coordinated? Chen Hao said in surprise. How is this possible? If there wasn't a time limit, there would still be hope. But with only 1 minute, how can he kill them all? It's not for you to kill them, it's for you to break through. When you enter, you will naturally know what to do. If you can only pass by killing all of them, not to mention the 10th floor, even the 2nd and 3rd floor, there aren't many who can complete it in 1 minute. What we need to do is to break through the opponent's blockade and walk to the entrance of the next floor. Then we will have successfully passed the floor. Other than facing opponents with the same strength as us, the closer we are to the entrance of the next floor, the greater the pressure we will have to endure and the stronger the mental attack will be. Therefore, it's not enough to have a high comprehension ability and a strong innate talent. Without sufficient temperament and willpower, it's also difficult to pass. You don't have to worry too much. The 2 of us definitely won't have a problem getting the qualifications. It's just a matter of what ranking we can get. Guxing is going. Just as Chen Shui and Chen Hao were watching and talking, the 5th batch of disciples who entered became the focus of everyone's attention. The super genius of the floating mist sect, Guxing. With his talent and potential, it shouldn't be a problem for him to reach the top. Chen Shui said softly, in the history of the Eastern continent, the average number of people who reach the top is around 5. As one of the most dazzling geniuses of the Eastern continent, he Chu Qingtian and Wu Ruochen will definitely reach the top. It's just a matter of whose results are better. They've all reached the top. How do we differentiate the results? According to the time they reached the top and their performance? Chen Hao asked. After watching a few matches, Chen Hao had already discovered that although the time difference between all the disciples passing through each level was very small, there was still a slight difference. For example, Duan Yufei had reached the 10th level when there was still more than 10 seconds and 9 minutes left. Furthermore, he had entered the 9th floor a few seconds earlier than the other 3 disciples who had entered the 9th floor. Yes, the most basic measurement is the number of floors. Within the same level, the results obtained were based on one's performance within the level. The time isn't accurate. However, if it's reaching the top, the faster the time, the better the performance, Chen Shui said. What a fast speed. That's amazing. This Guxing has always kept a low profile. I heard that other than the people from his sect, nobody has ever heard him speak. He basically doesn't interact with others, let alone get into a conflict. If he wasn't ranked first in his sect, I'm afraid the Eastern continent wouldn't even know how powerful he is. However, this strength. That's amazing. He's already at the 6th floor. In less than 4 minutes, he's already surpassed the others by 2 floors. This speed is a few times faster than Duan Yufei from the Ling Tian sect. Such speed means that he's very relaxed. He definitely has no problem reaching the top. Who knows, he might even be ranked first in the Eastern continent. When Guxing took the lead and made the testing tower shine all the way up, close to 10,000 cultivators' eyes were attracted to him. All of them were shocked. Even Chu Qingtian and Wu Ruochen's eyes shone with a fierce and powerful battle intent. In their eyes, there was no doubt that the low-profile and quiet Guxing was their opponent. The test in the Sky City, this time, was a confrontation before the intersect competition. Although it was not the final battle, for geniuses like them, They would never allow themselves to fail at any time, any place or anything. He's reached the top. As the crowd exclaimed in shock, Gu Xing, whose expression did not change at all, appeared proudly at the top of the testing tower. He stepped on a 7-colored waterfall that was different from the silver light that was ejected, and returned to the crowd under the admiration and envy of the crowd. The silver tower tablet shone with a dazzling light. Gu Xing's name replaced Duan Yufei and rose to the top. Moreover, unlike the other names, his name was 7-colored. Only the name that reached the top would be 7-colored. Amazing. 7 minutes. This Gu Xing only used 7 minutes to reach the top. This result can be ranked in the top 30 among the genius disciples in the past. Countless shocked voices erupted from the crowd. 7 minutes. Chu Qingtian will definitely surpass this number. Chu Qingtian stared at Gu Xing, who came with him, and said confidently in his heart. Although Gu Xing did not directly express his unwillingness to accept him as the commander like Wu Ruochen, the cold Gu Xing did not say a word along the way. Chu Qingtian knew in his heart whether he was convinced or not. Wu Ruochen also felt the pressure, but this pressure made his battle intent even higher. On average, it took about 6 minutes for each batch. After 20 batches, Gu Xing's name was still not surpassed by anyone. Some of the super geniuses of the 9th rank sects had reached the 10th level. There was also a genius from the 8th rank sect who reached the 10th level. However, he did not pass, but his result was better than Duan Yufei's. Duan Yufei slipped from 1st place to 7th place. There were a few who reached the 10th level, but like Duan Yufei, they were ejected instantly. Their ranking was still lower than Duan Yufei's. Overall, with Duan Yufei's reputation, this result was quite good. Many of the 9th rank sects who were more famous than him had been defeated by him. Xia Lanlan also completed the test and ended at the 9th level. Her ranking was at the top of all the people who had broken their wings at the 9th level. She was second only to the dozen people who had reached the 10th level and above. The 26th batch. Rogue cultivator Chen Shui. Chen Shui, who was chatting with Chen Hao, was brought to a testing tower by a beam of light. She quickly gathered her thoughts and reported her name. Chen Shui. Her name is Chen Shui. What a beautiful girl. How come I have never heard of such a person before? She's just a rogue cultivator. What's there to be proud of? She didn't even give me face when I invited her. I want to see how many levels she can reach. The moment Chen Shui appeared, she, who was wearing a blue dress and had a graceful figure, attracted the attention of countless people. Even though she was wearing a veil, it could not hide her beautiful face. It had to be said that a real beauty would be the center of attention no matter where she went, regardless of strength or status. There was a huge difference between this and a man. A man, no matter how handsome he was, if he did not have the strength and status to match it, he would at most be called a pretty boy or an embroidered pillow. Not many people would really pay attention to him. But a woman was different. Even if she was useless, as long as she was beautiful, she could cause disputes. The power of a femme fatale was absolutely terrifying. How many levels can she reach? The 10th level or the top? When Chen Shui stepped into the 1st level, Chen Hao's deep black eyes shone with a bright light. He thought to himself with some anticipation. Although they were not related by blood, Chen Shui was still his elder sister. Moreover, Chen Hao also knew that as the disciple of the nameless old man, Chen Shui was an anomaly who was only born after being pregnant for more than 100 years. Her talent was definitely not as simple as it seemed. Even Chen Hao was not sure if he was stronger than her. It was impossible not to look forward to it. Chapter 273. Chen Shui is not simple. Duan Yufei could not help but exclaim. It had not even been 5 minutes since Chen Shui stepped into the testing tower. However, what shocked everyone was that the 6th floor of the testing tower lit up first. Although the final result was not out yet, her speed was not much inferior to Gu Xing's. What's not simple about it? So what if she reached the top? No matter how powerful she is, she can't beat you. No matter what. Xia Lanlan stared at Chen Shui's testing tower and said with hostility. Duan Yufei smiled and did not say anything else. He agreed with Xia Lanlan, but he was sure that even if Chen Shui was not as powerful as Xia Yuyu, the difference was limited. Otherwise, she would not have advanced so quickly. The last time he saw Chen Shui, she was only at the peak of the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm. Furthermore, her cultivation was unstable and far from the half-step nascent soul realm. However, she was now at the initial stage of the nascent soul realm. How long had it been? No one dared to trigger the heavenly punishment casually. Even the super geniuses of the rank 9 sects did not dare to be careless. Only when one's mental state was perfect and had great confidence would they dare to trigger the heavenly punishment. However, Chen Shui did it so quickly, Duan Yufei did not know if her foundation was stable or not. However, being able to trigger the heavenly punishment in such a short time, and successfully pass it was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. 8 minutes. Chen Shui became the second disciple to successfully reach the top. Furthermore, she only used 8 minutes and was second only to Gu Xing. With such potential, Chen Shui had truly become the focus of everyone's attention. Even some of the super geniuses of the rank 9 sects looked at Chen Shui with astonishment. Many people thought of Chen Shui's identity as a rogue cultivator. Listen up, Chen Shui is only in her early 20s and has already reached the nascent soul realm. Furthermore, she has such potential. Even in our Yuan Gate, she is considered a top genius. After stepping into the city in the sky, if you meet her, invite her to join our Yuan Gate. Let her enjoy the treatment of a core disciple, and tell her that I said so. Do you understand? Yes, senior brother. The dozens of Yuan Gate disciples replied at the same time when they heard Chu Qingtian's message. Senior brother, what if she doesn't agree? Before you came, I invited her to form a team but was rejected. Do I need to say that? Although his potential is high, he is only at the early nascent soul stage. After you come out, leave her to me. Remember, just capture her. Don't touch her. Chu Qingtian's lips curled up slightly, and an evil glint flashed in his eyes. Yes. Everyone was slightly taken aback and hurriedly responded. They knew what kind of person Chu Qingtian was. They didn't dare to be dissatisfied with Chu Qingtian's overbearingness. Even the disciples who had thoughts about Chen Shui could only put away these thoughts. Chu Qingtian was the future sect master of the Yuan Gate. Who would dare to offend him? Very good, very good. A rogue cultivator at the early nascent soul stage. With such potential and such beauty, she is simply a perfect Taoist companion for me. While Chen Hao was briefing the Yuan Gate disciples, the floating mist sect's half-step incarnation stage super genius, Gu He, stared at Chen Shui, who had drifted to Chen Hao's side, with bright eyes as he thought to himself. Soon he sent a message to all the disciples of the floating mist sect other than Gu Xing. There were many similar situations like Yuan Gate and floating mist sect. Chen Shui would never have thought that her shocking performance would directly push her to the heart of the struggle. Of course, even if she knew, she would still do it and wouldn't care at all. The test continued. The rankings on the Silver Pagoda Monument were constantly changing. What shocked everyone was that the number of disciples who managed to reach the top of the Pagoda Monument this time had far exceeded the previous times. When the number of disciples reached 6,000, another 8 disciples had reached the top. Out of these 8 people, 6 of them were from the top 10 grade 9 sects, including Gu He. 2 of them were super geniuses from grade 8 sects. However, Gu Xing and Chen Shui's first and second positions were still unshakable. This situation continued until Wu Ruochen from the Sky Sword sect appeared. However, he only surpassed Chen Shui by a small margin and still couldn't shake Gu Xing's position. This made Wu Ruochen's expression very ugly. When the 70th round began, it was finally Chu Qingtian's turn. It's finally my turn. Haha. When the light beam locked onto Chu Qingtian said proudly. His sharp gaze was filled with disdain as he looked at Wu Ruochen. Finally, his gaze landed on Gu Xing provocatively. The first place can only belong to me, Chu Qingtian. It will still be the first place during the inter-sect competition. Chu Qingtian's arrogant voice resounded throughout the area. With a whoosh, he stepped into the testing tower. I have cultivated the heavenly domination technique to the greater completion realm. Who can stop me? The first place will definitely be mine. So what if it takes 7 minutes? Chu Qingtian took a deep breath and thought to himself as he stepped into the testing tower. So fast. Impressive. As expected of Chu Qingtian. I'm afraid Gu Xing won't be able to keep his first place. In just 3 minutes, close to 10,000 disciples widened their eyes in shock. Although many people were unhappy with Chu Qingtian's arrogance, they couldn't help but admire Chu Qingtian's strength. Just like the Yuan sect's dominance, Chu Qingtian passed through the levels with irresistible force. In just 3 minutes, he reached the 5th level. In 3.5 minutes, he reached the 6th level. This speed was more than 10 seconds faster than Gu Xing. Impossible. How can Chu Qingtian be so fast? Wu Ruochen clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. Although the results weren't out yet, Chu Qingtian would definitely be the first. He could tolerate losing to Gu Xing. However, he couldn't tolerate losing to Chu Qingtian. The reason was simple. It was because of Xia Yuyu. His and Chu Qingtian's sects had already expressed their intentions to the Ling Tian sect by marriage. Although Xia Lingfeng had temporarily rejected the marriage because of Xia Yuyu's cultivation, they both knew that they were each other's biggest competitors. Could it be that his heavenly domination technique has been cultivated to the greater completion realm? Gu Xing and Wu Ruochen thought to themselves at the same time. The heavenly domination technique was the Yuan sect's ultimate earth rank unique technique. Only disciples who were qualified to become the next sect leader could cultivate it. Any disciple who cultivated this technique would possess an aura of supremacy. When it was cultivated to the greater completion realm, its power would be even more terrifying. It was the most powerful unique technique that could be cultivated before the primordial soul stage. Amazing! I'm afraid Chu Qingtian will reach the top in about 6 minutes. Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao and said softly, My mother said that there would be countless super geniuses in the world when the great era arrives. It's true. The number of people who reached the top this year, and the time it took to reach the top has far surpassed the previous years. I'm afraid Chu Qingtian will break the previous records. This is just the eastern mainland. The western mainland and the southern sea islands might be even stronger than us. Even if I reach the peak of the advanced nascent soul stage, I'll only gain battle experience. At most, I'll be able to reach Gu Xing's level. Unless I can raise my carving mental cultivation method to the 4th stage. Why? Are you confident that you can surpass him? Chen Shui couldn't help but ask when she saw Chen Hao's expression. I'll know after I try. Chen Hao said noncommittally. However, the confidence in his eyes made Chen Shui understand that Chen Hao wasn't as simple as he made himself out to be. However, although Chen Shui believed that Chen Hao's insane talent would allow him to reach the top, it would be extremely difficult for him to surpass Chu Qingtian. She wasn't even sure if he could surpass her. After all, although this was a test of potential, the higher one's cultivation was, the more experience one had. Relatively speaking, one's comprehension would also increase. Naturally, one would be able to pass the test faster. However, Chen Hao's gaze made Chen Shui feel a sense of anticipation. It seemed that every time she thought she had seen him clearly, he would exceed her expectations. Would it be the same this time? Ha 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 ha. After 6 minutes, Chu Qingtian's arrogant laughter could be heard from the top of the testing tower. Some of the more powerful disciples had reached the top before they could even complete the test. They had surpassed Gu Xing, who was ranked first, and reached the top with absolute superiority. In terms of time, Chu Qingtian was undeniably the first. This was indeed the case. When all the disciples had completed their tests, the silver tower tablet shone with a resplendent light. Chu Qingtian's name replaced Gu Xing's and became a high and mighty existence. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not. But when Chu Qingtian slowly flew towards the area where the Yuan Gate disciples were located, the corners of his mouth curled into an arrogant smile. His gaze paused on Chen Shui's face for a moment. When the number of disciples had reached 9,000, the number of people who reached the top increased to 15 as the test drew to a close. Chu Qingtian was ranked first, Gu Xing was ranked second, Wu Ruochen was ranked third, and Chen Shui was ranked fourth. No one else could shake their positions. At this moment, under Chen Shui's expectant gaze, It was finally Chun Hao's turn. She wasn't excited at all when she was taking her own test. Instead, it was Chun Hao's test that made her heart beat faster. Could Chun Hao create another miracle? TSK, this kid is finally going up. Brothers, take a guess. Which level will he reach? When Chun Hao flew towards the testing tower, the cultivators standing near Chun Hao and Chen Shui began to discuss without restraint. Originally, although Chun Hao had killed Fan Fong when he was in the advanced nascent soul stage, it was nothing to these super geniuses. At most, they would take a few more glances. However, Chen Shui's intimacy with Chun Hao made them extremely jealous. At this moment, how could they not belittle her? It didn't matter whether they got it or not. At least, they couldn't let a fresh flower be stuck in cow dung. Level 5 at most. This kind of genius is just a low-ranking sex genius. If he were in our sect, he wouldn't even be worth a fart. He's only a few streets away from me. Are you kidding? I've only reached level 5. How can he compare to me? I think he'll be eliminated at level 4. He's just a super genius from a third-rank sect. How dare he come here to participate? Unfortunately, this isn't something that can be accomplished with courage alone. It's really possible. Look, many people have already reached level 2, but this guy is still on level 1. According to the odds, I'm afraid he'll be the first to be eliminated. Chen Shui frowned slightly. On one hand, the crowd was deliberately mocking Chun Hao. On the other hand, what really made Chen Shui frown was that Chun Hao had been on level 1 for too long. Just like what those people had said, with this kind of performance, he would probably be the first to be eliminated. What was going on? I'll update 1 chapter today. I owe 15 chapters. I apologize again. After the 17th, I'll start to repay the debt. I really can't do anything these few days. During the 10 days in Chengdu, Wuxia couldn't go out to write. My daughter only pestered me. She didn't even want her mother anymore. Wuxia was miserable. I returned to Kunming yesterday. Tomorrow, I'll go to Nanjing to attend the publishing house's annual meeting. I'll probably return to Kunming on the 17th. These few days, without his daughter pestering him, Wuxia tried to find time to write and maintain 1 chapter a day. When I return on the 17th, I'll settle the accounts and start to repay the debt. I hope everyone can bear with it for a while. I'm very sorry I'll leave in shame. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 274. Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan were equally puzzled. Although they did not know Chun Hao as well as Chen Shui did, they still knew a little about him. He was only 18 years old and could kill Fan Fong, who was half a step away from the nascent soul stage when he was only in the advanced golden elixir stage. How could his potential be low? Although he might not be able to reach the top, it was normal for him to reach the 9th or 10th level. However, many disciples had already reached the 2nd level, while Chun Hao was still on the 1st level. Judging by the time, it was very likely that he would be eliminated on the 4th or 5th level. The moment Chun Hao stepped into the testing tower, a 3,000-meter-long narrow passage appeared in front of him. At the same time, a mysterious and terrifying aura poured directly into Chun Hao's glabella. Chun Hao could clearly feel that this aura had locked onto his body. In an instant, a puppet with a metallic luster appeared in the middle of the passage. It did not have any aura of life, but it was emitting a terrifying aura. 3,000 meters. Under this pressure, even without the puppet blocking the way, it would take 10 seconds to fly across. Within 55 seconds, I have to pass through the puppet. Since this is a comprehensive test of one's state of mind, willpower, comprehension, combat talent and physical talent, there must be a connection between the 10 levels. Chun Hao, who had gone through the 7th level of the 7 Stars Palace, was instantly sure after sensing the aura on the 1st level of the testing tower. The puppets that were added between each level of the testing tower must be a combination of formations and combat skills. Moreover, from what Chen Shui had told him, although the time taken to pass the test was one of the main factors in assessing one's potential, it was not the only factor. Moreover, the people who had just taken the test had also confirmed this point. Among the 15 people who had reached the top, there were those who had taken longer to reach the top. Although there was not much difference in the time taken, At least it showed that time was not the only factor. Not daring to waste any time, Chen Hao rushed towards the puppet in the middle of the tunnel like a bolt of lightning. When he was still 300 meters away, Chen Hao unsheathed his sword and slashed out, using only 60% of his strength. He was very clear that this puppet's strength and essence force were on par with his. The only difference was in absolute arts and adaptability. With Chen Hao's talent, he could definitely defeat him in a few moves, but Chen Hao was not in a hurry to do so. Sharpening a knife won't delay the work of cutting firewood. On the first floor, there was only one puppet, which was undoubtedly the easiest way for Chen Hao to understand the characteristics of the puppet's battle formation. Therefore, he had to force the puppets to use all of their moves because these moves would be a part of the puppet's combined moves in the later levels. 50 seconds later, the puppet began to repeat the first move of its mysterious but obviously incomplete moves. When it reached the first move, Chen Hao suddenly pushed the first move of the 7-star sword art to the limit, and easily pierced through the puppet's head. He rushed to the second floor as fast as he could, and in about 59 seconds he barely passed the second floor. Second floor, third floor, fourth floor. 2 people, 4 people, 8 people. Chen Hao persevered until the last second to pass and killed all of them. Among the 100 testers, more than 10 were eliminated on the 4th floor. Apart from those people, Chen Hao was the last to enter the 5th floor. No way he can enter the 5th floor like this? It's similar to what I expected. The 5th floor is his limit. He'll definitely be eliminated on this floor. He's only 1 second away every time. He won't be so lucky every time. Chen Shui, Duan Yufei, and Xiao Lanlan were worried for Chen Hao every time he entered the next floor at the last second. However, after 4 consecutive times, the 3 of them were no longer nervous, but expectant. The 3 of them more or less understood Chen Hao. They were originally very surprised by Chen Hao's performance, but now they understood that Chen Hao was definitely doing it on purpose. Otherwise, it would be impossible for there to be a 1-second difference every time. The 3 of them thought that Chen Hao was hiding his strength, but they didn't know the real reason why Chen Hao slowed down. Another 59 seconds later, the 5th floor, 16 puppets were all killed again. Chen Hao stepped into the 6th floor. 32 people. The moment he stepped in, Chen Hao's eyes shone brightly. He felt the pressure doubled again. His state of mind was clear, and there was no fear at all. This set of formation combination combat skills definitely surpasses the 7-star sword formation by more than a few times. The number of people on each floor is doubled. It's impossible to kill all of them. The only way is to use the fastest speed to find the weakness of their cooperation. This must be the test of comprehension. Being able to find the weakness quickly and think of the best way to deal with it is the test of combat strength. Mind, willpower, and physical talent are all tests at all times. Chen Hao's brain was calculating rapidly. The pressure on each floor increased exponentially. Moreover, the longer he stayed, the greater the impact of the invisible pressure on his mind. It was definitely the greatest test of one's state of mind and willpower. The strength of the attacks on each battle was a test of one's physical talent. If one's combat strength was outstanding, they could definitely pass through faster. However, by doing so, the pressure on one's state of mind and willpower would be smaller, and it wouldn't be a real test. I'll kill as many as I can. I'll persist for as long as I can. This test is definitely not a test of time to measure one's results. Being fast is just a result of having a strong combat strength. It can't be. How is this possible? The 10th floor. This Chen Hao actually reached the 9th floor. He passed every floor at the last second. Could it be that he did it on purpose? Amazing. I really didn't expect this Chen Hao to be able to wait until the 10th floor. If he intentionally passed the first 9 floors at the last second, he definitely wouldn't have a problem reaching the top. When Chen Hao struggled and dangerously reached the 10th floor at the last second, everyone was shocked. This was because Chen Hao was the only one who was still taking the test. The others, including the super geniuses who had reached the 10th floor, had already finished their tests. At this moment, those fellows near Chen Shui that ridiculed and looked down upon Chen Hao had shut their mouths since a long time ago. There was utterly no need for anyone to counterattack the words from before. and it was like they were slapping their own mouths, so how could they have the face to say it? They were only shocked. Especially when they thought that Chen Hao might have purposely entered the next floor at the last second. They were so shocked and ashamed that they wanted to hide themselves. Time passed second by second. Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, and the rest were all paying attention to the testing tower that Chen Hao was in. They didn't know how Chen Hao did it every time at the last second. They also didn't know why Chen Hao did it. However, everyone, including Chu Qingtian, felt threatened. This was because, as super geniuses, they naturally knew that although the time taken to pass the testing tower could roughly determine the results of the test, it wasn't really determined by time. When they were in the tower, they had all raised their fighting power to the maximum and used their fastest speed to pass the test. This was because no one could withstand the increasingly terrifying pressure for too long. It had a huge impact on their bodies. The longer they stayed in the tower, the more their mental state would be affected. Naturally, the power they could unleash would be reduced. Who dared to stay in the tower for too long? Yufei, do you think he can reach the top? Xiao Lanlin's face was filled with anticipation and excitement as she asked softly. He should be able to. Once he reaches the top, his ranking should be very, very high. I really didn't expect Chen Hao's potential to be so great. Even if he can't reach the top, his results will still be very high. The only thing he lacks is his fighting talent. No, to be exact, he lacks a high-level secret art. A rank 3 sect is really burying his potential. When Chen Hao stepped into the 10th level, Xiao Lanlan and Duan Yufei both spoke softly. The standard to measure one's fighting talent, other than one's ability to adapt, was more important to look at one's own secret art. Being able to cultivate a powerful secret art would definitely increase one's fighting power exponentially. The higher one's fighting power was, the stronger his fighting talent. This was undeniable. However, Chen Hao was only a rank 3 sect. How many powerful secret arts could he have? In Duan Yufei's opinion, Chen Hao's 7-star finger sword was probably his strongest secret art. In this aspect, he couldn't be compared to Chu Qingtian and the rest. He's not simple. At least in terms of temperament and willpower, I can't compare to him. When Chen Hao stepped into the 10th level for 50 seconds, he stared at the lone star in the testing tower. His eyes shone brightly as he thought to himself. Pfft. Chen Hao spat out another mouthful of blood. Last 10 seconds. If I can't find the weakness, I can only force my way through. Chen Hao's figure was as fast as lightning as he shuttled through the joint attacks of the 512 puppets. He felt the pressure that was as heavy as mountains and seas. Every attack caused his body and mind to suffer great pain. Even though his temperament was as firm as a rock, he was still greatly affected. After 50 seconds, even with his comprehension, he couldn't find the puppet's weakness. This joint formation was definitely several times stronger than the 7-star finger sword formation. It was almost perfect. Fortunately, it wasn't the combined attacks of the 512 puppets. Otherwise, no matter how tough his body was, he would have been blasted into pieces. Nobody is perfect. The moon is full and there is no perfect existence in this world. It's the same for formations. There must be a weakness in this formation. Where is it? The immense pressure caused Chen Hao's brain to work at a terrifying speed. His soul consciousness, eyes, intuition were all activated to the extreme. However, he didn't find anything. Every part was perfect and flawless. 10 seconds. In reality, Chen Hao only had 5 seconds. In the remaining 5 seconds, he had to sprint to the finish line with all his strength. Otherwise, even if he broke through the blockade of the puppets, he wouldn't be able to reach the top. Because he would exceed the time limit. It's repeated. Connect. Just when there were only 7 seconds left and Chen Hao was prepared to use his strongest trump card, the platinum sky-piercing slash, to force his way through, his eyes lit up. He discovered the weakness of the 512 puppets. That was connecting. After the combination attack had circulated for an entire cycle, the moment it began to repeat, there was an insignificant pause. However, Chen Hao was able to catch this pause. Kill. The platinum sky-piercing slash that was already prepared was suddenly released. Chapter 275. The sharp sword light turned into a stream of light, like the Milky Way descending from the 9 heavens, and slashed at the weak point. Boom. With a single strike, the countless puppets were unable to react at all. In an instant, over 100 heads flew into the air. Chen Hao used the last of his strength to pass through the dense crowd of puppets and rushed to the finish line. Even though these puppets were no longer perfect after breaking the combined attack, and they were no longer a threat to Chen Hao was unable to continue killing them. This was because with Chen Hao's current strength, he could only use the Platinum Heaven-Splitting Slash 3 times at his peak condition. However, he did not have much energy left after all this time. He only had less than half of his energy left when he used this attack. Moreover, he did not have any time to waste. Otherwise, he would exceed the time limit. At the last second, the heavily injured and weak Chen Hao stepped into the exit that was shining with a bright white light. The moment his body was wrapped up, Chen Hao clearly felt that not only was his energy replenished, it had also surpassed his peak condition before he stepped into the tower. He reached the top. When Chen Hao appeared at the top of the tower in 59 seconds, the shock in everyone's hearts was indescribable. However, what shocked them even more was that Chen Hao's name appeared at the top of the silver tower. First place. He had surpassed the number 1 genius of the Yuan Gate, Chu Qingtian, and appeared in first place. Buzzing sounds of discussion filled with disbelief instantly resounded among the close to 10,000 cultivators. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the figure that floated in front of Chen Shui. At this moment, even though many people didn't want to admit it, their feelings had completely changed. The handsome Chen Hao and Chen Shui no longer felt like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung when they were together. There was only a perfect pair, a match made in heaven. He passed the test in 9 minutes and 50 seconds, and is actually in first place. Oh my god. Is he really a genius from a 3rd-grade sect? This is unbelievable. His ranking actually surpassed Chu Qingtian, who is only at the advanced golden core stage. I wonder what rank Chen Hao will get when the results of the Western Mainland and the Southern Sea Islands are out. He should be able to enter the top 10, right? Or maybe even better. No matter what, our Eastern continent's results this time will definitely be the best we've ever had. I'm really looking forward to it. No wonder that Chen Shui favors him so much. Both of them are first-rate super geniuses. They're practically a match made in heaven. He actually surpassed me. This was definitely not true potential. It was me who pursued speed too much. If I could slow down, how could he possibly surpass me? A tiny little advanced stage golden core realm cultivator wants to seize my karmic luck? He's simply courting death. What match made in heaven? Chen Shui is definitely going to be my concubine. Since that's the case, I'll just kill her. I want to see how a dead person is going to snatch my fortune. Chu Qingtian's gaze contained a trace of undetectable viciousness. He stared at Chen Hao, whom he had not paid any attention to, and thought to himself. Then he gave another order to the disciples of the sect. At the very least, he couldn't kill Chen Hao in this place. This Chen Hao is actually so strong. Yu seems to be paying attention to him too. Since the Ling Tian sect has long valued him, his talent and age. If Wu Ruochen's eyes flickered as he pondered in his heart. A moment later he raised his eyebrows and said to himself, no. If this brat is allowed to grow, he might become a threat to me. He's no less a threat than Chu Qingtian. Similarly, there were also some people who could not bear to see such a genius in a low-grade sect, and wanted to kill Chen Hao out of jealousy. Of course, most of them were disciples who had fantasies about Chen Shui, the sectless cultivator. Although nobody showed it at this moment, the subtle hostility and killing intent made Chen Hao frown slightly. In the Ling Tian sect, apart from Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan, the other super geniuses were shocked. At the same time, they deeply admired Xia Nantian and sect leader Xia Lingfeng for standing up for Chen Hao. You have to be careful. Chen Shui, who was close to Chen Hao, used her sharp soul perception to naturally sense the hostility and killing intent surging from the surroundings. While she was shocked by Chen Hao's talent, she reminded him through voice transmission. Don't worry. Chen Hao said softly, and did not say much. He had already expected this when he decided to fight for it without holding back. However, he did not expect it to be so serious. It was impossible to say that he did not feel pressured. He had no chance of winning against powerhouses above the mastery nascent soul stage. But if it was to save his life, he could still do it. In less than an hour, all the cultivators from the eastern mainland had finally completed the test. The disciples who were ranked within the top 1,000 were qualified to enter the Sky City to train. Disciples who are ranked within the top 1,000 can come and get your communication talisman. The Sky City should be opening soon. Hurry up. Chu Qingtian said proudly. Upon hearing Chu Qingtian's words, many disciples who were qualified rushed towards him. However, nearly half of the disciples did not move. This was especially so for the grade 9 sects and some powerful grade 8 sections. They did not have any intention of getting their talismans. The so-called leadership and unity was only a superficial formality. To the genius disciples, no one was willing to be under the leadership of others. Chen Hao and Chen Shui were even more unlikely to get their talismans. After an hour, the silver pagoda tablet shone brightly again. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on the pagoda tablet. Everyone knew that the final ranking of the Eastern Mainland, Western Mainland, and Southern Sea Islands who were qualified to enter the Sky City was about to be released. Where would Chen Hao, Chu Qingtian, and the rest be ranked? Without a doubt, this was the question that everyone was most concerned about. For the past few batches, the Eastern Mainland's overall strength was the weakest. The disciple with the highest ranking did not even enter the top 10. The super geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands were always at the top. At the very least, they took up 6 spots in the top 10. Most of them had 7 or 8 spots. The rest were taken up by the Western Mainland. However, this time, Chen Hao and Chu Qingtian, especially Chen Hao's shocking performance, made everyone look forward to it. After all, there might be people who were hostile towards Chen Hao. However, to outsiders, this concerned the reputation of the entire Eastern Mainland. Most people still hoped that Chen Hao and Chu Qingtian could enter the top 10. 6th, 10th. When the final ranking on the silver pagoda tablet was fixed, the crowd was in an uproar. Chen Hao's name not only entered the top 10, but also the top 6. Chu Qingtian also entered the top 10. The Eastern Mainland had achieved the best result in the past 1,000 years. I'm only 6th. Chen Hao, who was also looking forward to it, was not excited at all when he saw his own ranking. On the contrary, his black eyes shone with a tinge of seriousness. You're still not satisfied? Seeing Chen Hao's expression, Chen Shui said, this is already the best result in the past 1,000 years in the Eastern Mainland. The cultivation conditions of the Southern Sea Islands are much better than ours. Moreover, many of their super geniuses contain the power of ancient bloodlines. Their physical talents are comparable to demonic beasts when they are born. They are much stronger than us. The Western Mainland is also stronger than us. But you are only at the late stage of the Golden Core realm. Although this test is to test one's potential, the higher your cultivation, the more experience you have, and the more powerful you are. Other than you, the top 10 are all experts who are half a step into the nascent soul realm. You should be satisfied. Be careful. You too. While Chen Shui was speaking, the silver pagoda tablet had already emitted rays of resplendent light that enveloped all the qualified disciples. In the void, a gigantic light door with a diameter of 10,000 feet appeared. Whoosh 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 whoosh. All of a sudden, 1,000 disciples swarmed towards the light door like a swarm of locusts. Chen Hao felt that the space around him was twisted. His vision, hearing, and senses were temporarily deafened. Then he appeared in a boundless area of floating clouds, as if he was in the middle of a deep forest. The heaven and earth spirit chi was so dense that it shocked Chen Hao. There were many huge trees, and even the shortest one was hundreds of feet tall and dozens of feet wide. Other than that, there was also an endless amount of demonic beasts. Such dense space spirit chi. Glancing around, Chen Hao's gaze locked onto a sword-shaped plant that was stuck in the ground like a great sword. It was silver in color, shining with a faint metallic luster. If it were not for the fact that it was swaying in the wind, people might have mistaken it for a great sword. But what surprised Chen Hao the most was that this sword-shaped plant contained an extremely dense space spirit qi. Could it be the empty space spirit grass? Chen Hao thought about the introduction of spiritual items in the sex information, and said in surprise, "Not bad. It is indeed the sky spirit plant. Master, this sky city is indeed magical. No wonder you cultivators are fighting so hard to get in here. This sky spirit plant contains a lot of space spirit qi, which is very useful for learning the truth of the space element. Any one of them could be sold at the price of a low-rank spiritual item. There are hundreds of them here." With Chen Hao's permission, Ito Ta spread out his senses and said excitedly in Chen Hao's mind, "I have already touched a little bit of the truth of the space element. This is great. With these sky spirit plants, I might be able to learn it in one go." Without any hesitation, Chen Hao's body flashed and rushed towards the sky spirit plants. He activated his space-absorbing palm, and all of a sudden, the sky spirit plants were uprooted. Chen Hao did not even look at them as he put them into his storage space. Boom! A whoa! Just as Chen Hao put away the last sky spirit plant, accompanied by a loud beast roar, the ground within a radius of 1,000 feet suddenly exploded. A khaki-colored demonic beast, which looked like a pangolin that had expanded countless times, rushed to the sky, opened its big mouth full of fangs, and tried to swallow Chen Hao. Chen Hao was not surprised at all. Spiritual items all had demonic beasts accompanying them. How could there not be hundreds of sky spirit plants? Unhurriedly he threw out a punch. Boom! The true essence condensed by Chen Hao, which was 90% of his strength, immediately repelled the demonic beast. However, to Chen Hao's surprise, although the huge fist shadow made by the true essence made contact with the demonic beast's body, it was swallowed and dissolved by the small space vortex that gushed out of the demonic beast's body. The demonic beast was not hurt at all. Chapter 276. Qi. Since his first punch had failed, Chen Hao formed a sword with his finger and performed the 7-star sword finger. This attack was still 90% of his strength, but it was several times sharper than a casual punch. In Chen Hao's mind, even if he couldn't kill the beast, he could at least severely injure it. But to his surprise, just as the 3 sword fingers were about to make contact with the demonic beast's head, an even more powerful spatial vortex appeared on the demonic beast's body and neutralized Chen Hao's attack. This ancient demonic beast is powerful. It is only at the peak of the late-stage golden core stage. I have already cultivated the 7-star finger sword to the initial stage, and its attack power has definitely increased by more than 5 times. I can even kill an early-stage nascent soul-stage demonic beast with ease, but it is useless against this ancient demonic beast. The spatial vortex formed by the ancient demonic beast's body seemed to be able to devour all energy, and made Chen Hao's attack unable to display even 30% of its power. Roar! After being forced back twice by a puny human, the ancient demonic beast roared and opened its bloody mouth in anger. It spat out a violent vortex of energy. What powerful spatial energy! Chen Hao was shocked. The ancient demonic beast's attack didn't charge toward Chen Hao. Instead, it formed a massive vortex in front of its mouth. It was like a black hole, and contained a terrifying devouring power. In almost an instant, Chen Hao felt as if his essence was being devoured and his body was being drawn toward the demonic beast uncontrollably. The energy of heaven and earth within a radius of 10,000 feet surged toward the black hole. What powerful spatial fluctuations! 100 kilometers away, a voice that had just stepped into Sky City exclaimed in surprise after sensing the energy fluctuations. This must be one of the treasured lands in this area. Who could have been teleported to a better location than me? Could it be Jian Wuxia? The figure frowned and a hint of excitement flashed in his eyes. Whoosh! His body flashed and he quickly flew toward the source of the energy fluctuations. When a cultivator was teleported to Sky City, it was usually related to their cultivation base and ranking. Those who weren't far away were usually people with similar strength and potential. In another direction, a few dozen kilometers away from Chen Hao, a beautiful woman stared at the sky where Chen Hao was. A hint of surprise appeared on her face as she muttered, "Such a strong spatial fluctuation. Someone must have been teleported directly to the treasure land. No one in the Western continent can compare to me. He must be a super genius from the South Sea Islands. I'd like to see for myself. These two people were Liao Guangye and Jian Wufei, the two super geniuses of the Western continent, who were only half a step away from the nascent soul stage. How is this possible? At the same time, in a place less than 20 miles away from where Chen Hao was, a young disciple with an extremely powerful aura stared into the void and frowned. Someone actually teleported to a better location than me? Regardless of potential or combat strength, there's absolutely no one in the Golden Core realm that can compare to me, Yu Chengfeng. How is this possible? Could it be that an absolute genius had appeared in the Western continent? No, he must be a disciple who has just stepped into the early nascent soul stage and has great potential. Otherwise, there is no way he can be better than me. You're just an early nascent soul realm cultivator. As long as you're not from the Southern Sea Islands, you'll have to die. Hiss. As soon as this voice finished speaking, it was as if space itself had been torn apart and the person suddenly disappeared. This young disciple was a half-step nascent soul stage cultivator from the South Sea Islands who was ranked in the top 8 of the Tower of Testing. He was ranked slightly lower than Chen Hao Yu Chengfeng. In the South Sea Islands, he was even more famous than the super geniuses of the core disciples. He had killed countless early nascent soul stage cultivators, and even killed some mid-nascent soul stage cultivators. His body was surrounded by a murderous aura that was almost tangible. Even opponents of similar strength would find it difficult to use their full strength under his murderous aura, and could only be killed. Other than these 3 people, there were 6 others. 4 of them were early nascent soul stage cultivators from the South Sea Islands. 1 was early nascent soul stage cultivator from the Western continent, and the last one was wearing a blue dress. It was Chen Shui, who had just stepped into the nascent soul stage. Including Chen Hao, a total of 10 people were teleported to nearby areas. A mere late golden core stage cultivator was teleported to this area? How is this possible? And he's even a disciple from the Eastern continent? In a short while, Yu Chengfeng arrived near Chen Hao. He concealed his presence and stood in the air as he stared at Chen Hao, who was fighting a primordial demonic beast. He thought in shock. To be able to teleport here, he must be a golden core stage cultivator or early nascent soul stage cultivator with similar results as me. But this kid is only at the late golden core stage. How could he be here? Could it be that his potential ranking is higher than mine? In Yu Chengfeng's opinion, the other party should be at least an early nascent soul stage super genius. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be teleported to a better location than him. But now, the young man in front of him was only at the late golden core stage, and his appearance was definitely 1 or 2 years younger than him. Although this ancient beast is only at the peak of the late golden core stage, the ancient aura and space attribute essence that it contains are probably at the peak of the initial stage. The precious spirit herbs nearby must have been obtained by this kid. Once this beast is killed, the cultivation cave will open. I want to see how this kid kills it. Yu Chengfeng slowly released his aura. His gaze was like a mantis stalking a cicada. He stood in the void and looked at Chen Hao mockingly. He knew very well that with such a big commotion, it would not be long before some super geniuses with similar strength arrived. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to make a move. As long as they were not from the Southern Sea Islands, they would all die. When the time came, he would be the one to enter the small grotto heaven and obtain the spirit herbs. He had absolute confidence in his strength. At this moment, a blue figure appeared strangely on the other side. When Yu Chengfeng saw this figure, his eyes suddenly lit up. The second person to arrive was Chen Shui. Chen Shui was originally further away than the others, but she had the advantage of speed. Moreover, when she sensed the spatial fluctuations, she vaguely felt that it was definitely Chen Hao who had increased his speed to the limit. After all, although Yu Chengfeng and the others knew that Chen Hao was ranked 6th on the pagoda tablet, they did not know that Chen Hao was at the golden core stage. Therefore, Chen Shui was almost certain that Chen Hao was the only one who could teleport to such a good location. Moreover, this was just the beginning. As time passed, if she and Chen Hao wanted to obtain greater gains, They would have to continue to go deeper. By then they would encounter mid-stage or even late-stage nascent soul realm experts, which was extremely dangerous. Therefore, if she could be with Chen Hao, they could rely on each other. When Yu Chengfeng looked at Chen Shui also noticed Yu Chengfeng's malicious gaze, but she ignored it and flew directly to Chen Hao, who was immersed in the battle, waiting for him. She was quite speechless about Chen Hao. When she came in, she had already made it very clear to Chen Hao that in the Sky Castle, with their strength, they could only keep a low profile if they wanted to protect themselves. However, Chen Hao knew that such an intense battle would attract the nearby super geniuses of the same level, but he still immersed himself in the battle without any scruples. Others could not tell, but Chen Shui knew that Chen Hao was not fighting with all his strength. Instead, he was deliberately entangled with the ancient demonic beast, obviously trying to understand the mysteries of the space attribute from the ancient demonic beast. Brother Yu. Whoosh whoosh. A few others arrived one after another. Among them there were 4 early-stage nascent soul realm disciples. When they saw Yu Chengfeng, they immediately flew to his side. Although their cultivation levels were higher than Yu Chengfeng's, their eyes were full of respect, but their hearts were filled with shock and confusion. Originally, they all thought that the one who caused the commotion was Yu Chengfeng, so they came to get a share of the loot. However, they did not expect that the one who was fighting with the ancient demonic beast was a young late-stage Golden Core Realm disciple. Wu Fei, I'm very happy to meet you. When the Western Mainland disciple, Liao Guangye, saw the familiar figure, he immediately flew over and said with a smile. Jian Wu Fei nodded and did not say anything. Her gaze slowly swept past Yu Chengfeng and the others, and finally landed on Chen Hao. The other half-step nascent soul realm disciple from the Western Mainland also flew to the two of them. Brother Yu. It is said that each region corresponds to a small cultivation grotto heaven. The number of people sent to this region is usually 10. The closer the location is to the small cultivation grotto heaven, the stronger the overall strength. However, there are also accidents and luck. This kid is only at the late-stage Golden Core realm, so his potential is not bad. However, luck is even better. Otherwise, he would not have found it before Brother Yu. Of course. Brother Yu is the #1 inner disciple in the Southern Sea Islands. Who can compare to him? Brother Yu, let's kill these guys. There are 5 of us, 3 from the Western Mainland, and 2 from the Eastern Mainland. It is not a ratio at all. We just need to get a share of the loot. In the Southern Sea Islands, a disciple looked at Liao Guangye and Chen Hao and said in a relaxed tone. From the looks of it, it was as if killing 5 people was an extremely easy task. You guys go and take down the 3 from the Western Mainland. Kill the man and leave the girl. The 2 from the Eastern Mainland are not in a hurry. I will take care of them later. Okay. I'm Arrogant. Tell me your name. I want to see what is so great about the Southern Sea Islands. Liao Guangye heard the provocation and immediately said in a furious tone. Especially when Yu Chengfeng's tone made it clear that he was interested in Jian Wu Fei. Chen Shui, who was standing near Chen Hao in a serious battle array, had her brows knit together tightly as a strong battle intent arose from her body. Her aura instantly became icy cold to the extreme as she stared at the 2 groups that seemed to be about to open fire. Haha. Your courage is commendable. How can you compare to the Southern Sea Islands? Listen up. This is the #1 genius of the Southern Sea Islands, Yu Chengfeng. With his half-step nascent soul cultivation, he is ranked 8th in the test. As for the 4 of us, we are not people you can compare to. Cut the crap and accept your death obediently. Brothers, attack. Hiss hiss hiss. The 4 of them charged towards Liao Guangye, Jian Wu Fei, and the other disciple from the Western Mainland. You are courting death. Jian Wu Fei let out a cold shout and suddenly attacked. When she heard Yu Chengfeng's name, she was indeed very surprised. However, whether it was her or Liao Guangye, they were both extremely arrogant geniuses. It was impossible for them to give up without a fight. Guaranteed first update. As of yesterday, I owe everyone 23 chapters. I will continue to update today. I will try my best to repay my debt. I will guarantee at least 2 chapters a day. The extra chapters will be used to repay my debt. The second update will be tonight. I am very sorry. I have made everyone wait for so long. Chapter 277. Geniuses all have arrogance that normal people don't have. Otherwise, they wouldn't be geniuses. When facing an opponent of similar strength, if they give in before the battle, they will lose their drive. How can a cultivator without drive become a genius? Plus, Jian Wufei's ranking was only 3 places lower than Yu Qingfeng's. She, who was half a step away from the nascent soul stage, was ranked 11th. Liao Guangya was ranked 26th, and was second only to her in the golden core stage of the Western continent. With the addition of another nascent soul stage cultivator, even if the 3 of them can't defeat Yu Qingfeng's group of 5, they can still retreat. What is there to fear? Jian Wufei stepped forward and stabbed out with her sword. Hiss. Good. Facing Jian Wufei's incoming disciple, he shouted in disdain and punched out. Boom. A terrifying explosion erupted between the 2 of them. What the disciple from the South Sea Islands didn't expect was that Jian Wufei's seemingly casual slash actually contained an energy as vast as a mountain, and as deep as an ocean. The moment they collided, his violent punch was shattered. Within the resplendent sword light, he seemed to see a majestic scene of mountains and rivers. It gave him a feeling that he couldn't be defeated, which terrified him to the extreme. But the punch was too late, and it was too late for him to dodge. Puff. In an instant, the disciple flew back like a kite with a broken string. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He was heavily injured in one move. Umph. Yu Qingfeng coldly snorted. When the disciple flew to his side, he waved his hand and sent out a beam of energy to catch him. He stared coldly at Jian Wufei and said, "You are a disciple of the Western Continent's Tianhe sect? If I'm not wrong, you are Jian Wufei who was ranked 11th in the test? So what if I am?" Jian Wufei said coldly. "I didn't think that you would be able to learn the mountain river sword technique. You are worthy of me." Yu Qingfeng making a move. "I will give you 2 choices. 1 is to die. 2 is to surrender and teach me the mountain river sword technique. Then, I can spare your life. If you are obedient, I can make you one of my companions. How about it? Don't be in a hurry to answer. I will give you 1 minute to consider." Whoosh. Yu Qing casually said. However, his words were overbearing and arrogant, as if he didn't put Jian Wufei and the others in his eyes at all. Just as he finished speaking, a fan mysteriously appeared in his hand. With a schwa sound, he opened it and gently fanned it. He looked at Jian Wufei with a mocking gaze. He looked like a pale-faced scholar who didn't have the strength to truss a chicken. However, the dense murderous aura that surged around him destroyed this artistic conception. In fact, even Yu Qingfeng didn't dare to underestimate Jian Wufei. To severely injure an early nascent soul stage super genius with 1 move, even he would find it difficult to do so. This strength was definitely enough to contend with him. The reason was naturally the mountain river sword art. The mountain river sword technique was one of the most famous techniques of the Milky Way sect. It was extremely difficult to cultivate. Without top-notch talent and comprehension, it was impossible to cultivate it successfully. Moreover, the basic conditions for cultivation were quite harsh. One had to be a swordsman who had comprehended sword essence. Once mastered, the sword would contain the sword Dao attribute that cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. The sword Dao attribute was actually the sword Dao intent. Once one had the sword Dao intent, any casual attack would greatly affect the cultivator's state of mind. Especially those with weak mental fortitude, the impact would be even greater. It would be difficult for them to even use 50% of their strength. The Mountain River Sword technique of the Milky Way sect contained the Mountain River Sword Dao attribute. 1 move and the Mountain River has me. It was safe to say that the test ranking didn't reflect Jian Wufei's true strength. The reason was simple. The puppets in the test tower had no emotions. They wouldn't be affected by the sword Dao intent. If it was a real person, Jian Wufei's ranking would definitely be higher. Just you? You'll have to get past me first. Hiss. Liao Guangya saw Jian Wufei's strength and was both shocked and overjoyed. Therefore, even though he felt how terrifying Yu Qingfeng was, he still wanted to fight on Jian Wufei's behalf. Who do you think you are? Fuck off. Yu Qingfeng didn't move. Another early nascent soul stage cultivator stepped forward to meet Liao Guangya. The battle was about to begin. Jian Wufei's answer to Yu Chengfeng was her violent sword light. Every sword light contained the mountain river will. Boom boom boom. The terrifying energy explosion wreaked havoc. Chen Shui, who was guarding Chen Hao, who was immersed in the battle, became a bystander. It had to be said that the two sides didn't put her and Chen Hao in their eyes at all. It was as if they wanted to, they could kill Chen Shui and Chen Hao at any time. Chen Hao naturally saw them coming. However, he was immersed in comprehending the space attribute of the ancient demonic beast, and didn't want to be distracted. Even an idiot would know that such a powerful and mysterious ancient demonic beast was extremely rare. If he missed it, he wouldn't have another chance. Boom. Roar. Hiss hiss hiss. There was a loud sound and the ancient demonic beast's cry. A dense energy spread out from Chen Hao's body. It was like a wave that swept out for hundreds of meters. The thick energy in the area seemed to be summoned and crazily rushed toward Chen Hao. What? He killed it? Everyone was shocked. They had already noticed the ancient demonic beast. Although it was only at the peak of the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm, it contained the space attribute. Based on Chen Hao's performance just now, it would take a long time to kill it. However, at this moment, it was killed in a moment of carelessness. What did the death of the ancient demonic beast mean? It meant that a small cultivation grotto heaven was about to appear. However, that wasn't what shocked them. What really shocked them was that Chen Hao, who was fighting with the ancient demonic beast, had entered the state of enlightenment that all cultivators dreamed of. Enlightenment. This kid entered a state of enlightenment at this moment. Kill him first. This kid must have great strength and potential to be able to come here. If he succeeds, it will be troublesome. Almost at the same time, the two sides, including Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei, stopped fighting and looked at Chen Hao. Not only did they want to kill Chen Hao, who had entered a state of enlightenment, they also wanted to fight for the grotto heaven that was about to appear. Shameless. What do you want? We don't have to fight for the grotto heaven, but don't interrupt his enlightenment. Boom. Energy exploded from Chen Shui's body. Her blue dress fluttered in the wind as she stood guard beside Chen Hao. Like an eagle protecting a chick, she opened her arms. Even Chen Shui didn't expect that Chen Hao would actually enter a state of epiphany when danger was lurking everywhere. If she was facing the cultivators of the eastern continent, she could still sternly warn them. However, facing the disciples of the Southern Sea Archipelago and the Western continent, who would abide by this conventional law of the cultivation world. However, her opponent hadn't made a move yet. She still held on to a sliver of hope. At this moment, the door to the grotto heaven suddenly appeared 1,000 feet above Chen Hao's head. It's open. Kill him. Yu Chengfeng waved his fan. Streaks of sharp wind blades containing dense killing intent and terrifying energy tore through the void. Jian Wufei stabbed out with her sword. Her sword light was infused with the mountain river sword Dao. It wasn't any weaker than Yu Chengfeng's attack. Their attacks were 1,000 feet apart, but they still rushed towards Chen Hao and Chen Hao. She took the lead. Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei clearly wanted to kill Chen Hao and Chen Hao together. They wanted to cut off the space between Chen Hao and the door to the grotto heaven. Even Yu Chengfeng didn't hesitate. Although he was greedy for Chen Shui's beauty, he knew that once Chen Shui, who was the closest to the door, entered, the door would close and they would all lose their chance. As for the other 6 people, besides the guy who was injured by Jian Wufei who was meditating and healing, the other 5 people also attacked. Chen Hao. Knowing that Chen Hao was destined to be interrupted, Chen Shui decisively shouted at Chen Hao. At the same time, she rushed towards Chen Hao as fast as lightning. She knew very well that those terrifying attacks were not something she could withstand. If she didn't dodge, she and Chen Hao would definitely be blasted to smithereens. Pung pung pung. Chen Hao, who was in the midst of his epiphany, was like a terrifying black hole. It was crazily devouring the heaven and earth spiritual qi. Every time Chen Shui got close, she would have to endure the attacks of the heaven and earth spiritual qi. However, she could only grit her teeth and rush over. It was also at this moment that Chen Hao, who was in the midst of his epiphany, also sensed a fatal threat. His eyes abruptly opened. filled with monstrous fury. He waved his hand to welcome Chen Shui, who was rushing over to hug him and escape, and hugged her instead. Boom. The violent energy around his body instantly formed a protective barrier. It forcefully blocked the attacks that were sealing him, and the door to the grotto heaven. Pooh, 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 pooh. Arrows of blood shot out of Chen Hao's body without any suspense. In an instant, his body was covered in wounds. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, and several holes that almost penetrated his body appeared. The moment Chen Hao entered the grotto heaven, he turned around and looked at the shocked Yu Chengfeng, Jian Wufei, and the others who were madly rushing over. Just you wait. Hua. The moment Chen Hao rushed in with Chen Shui, the door to the grotto heaven disappeared. However, Chen Hao's cold voice rang out in everyone's ears. Fuck. How is this possible? Yu Chengfeng, Jian Wufei, and the others were dumbfounded. No one would have thought that Chen Hao would be able to bring Chen Shui into the grotto heaven with their combined strength. The combined attacks of several people, especially those of Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei, should have been able to instantly blast the two of them to smithereens. However, Chen Hao had actually protected Chen Shui and rushed into the grotto heaven. From those terrifying wounds, in their opinion, Chen Hao would undoubtedly die. However, since the door to the grotto heaven was closed, there could only be one reason. Chen Shui wasn't dead. The grotto heaven could only be entered once. There was no problem for 2, 3, or even more people to enter at the same time. However, as long as a life form entered, it would close. There was no second chance. This was also the reason why they were frantically trying to stop Chen Hao and Chen Shui. What a terrifying gaze. Fortunately, this guy is definitely going to die. Otherwise, apart from Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei, even Liao Guangye was shocked by Chen Hao's gaze. He felt a chill run down his spine. Too tragic. The second chapter was supposed to be finished at 8, but it suddenly crashed. There was nothing left. I could only start again. I can only guarantee that I'll finish 2 chapters today. I still owe 23 chapters. Chapter 278. Damn it. Yu Chengfeng clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. Then he stared at Jian Wufei coldly. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Jian Wufei, if you had listened to me, they wouldn't have gotten what they wanted. Now all of you die. Boom. The extremely dense killing intent was raised to the limit by Yu Chengfeng. After the fight just now, Yu Chengfeng knew that if he wanted to take down Jian Wufei, he would have to use his true abilities. As the #1 golden core cultivator of the Southern Sea Islands, he had never failed in anything he did. In the same level, no one could surpass him. But this time he lost. Chen Hao and Chen Shui, whose names he didn't even know, stole his small cultivation grotto heaven. How could he not be angry? And all of this was because of Jian Wufei. If it weren't for the fight with Jian Wufei, how could he have let Chen Hao and Chen Shui get what they wanted? In other words, if Jian Wufei was slightly weaker, Chen Hao and Chen Shui wouldn't have gotten what they wanted. If you want to kill me, then use your true abilities. Jian Wufei was also furious. To her, it was all because of Yu Chengfeng. Without his provocation, how could the weakest get what they wanted? As she spoke, Jian Wufei stepped forward. Her snow-white wrist suddenly shook. In an instant, a sword ray that contained the will of the mountain flew towards Yu Chengfeng. Jian Wufei also knew how powerful Yu Chengfeng was. Plus, Yu Chengfeng didn't use his true abilities, awakening his bloodline. 9 out of 10 of the super geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands had an ancient bloodline. Their physiques were naturally comparable to beasts. How could Yu Chengfeng not have it? The moment Jian Wufei and Yu Chengfeng began their fight, Liao Guangye and the other 2 also began their fight against the 3 from the Southern Sea Islands. Liao Guangye didn't attack the 3 people who were still in good condition. Instead, he attacked the disciple who was sitting cross-legged and recuperating with his sword without any warning. The disciple sensed great danger and opened his eyes. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and a terrifying bloodline power exploded. Then, his entire body turned into a ray of light and escaped. You want to kill me? In your dreams. Brother Yu, I'm heavily injured, I'll take a step back first. Jian Wufei, Liao Guangye, I, Sima Xiangnan, will avenge today's humiliation. Sima Xiangnan's humiliating voice floated from afar. It had to be said that every single person present here was a super genius who had experienced great storms and waves. They were all top figures in their respective sects, and all of them had ultimate life-saving moves. Wanting to easily kill them was absolutely not an easy task. Humph, you actually managed to escape with such heavy injuries. I'll let you live for now. Liao Guangye didn't give chase. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he couldn't. If he chased after her, only Jian Wufei and one other person would be left. Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng were equal in strength. Although the other person was strong, he had no chance of winning against the other three from the South Sea Islands. 1-on-1, 2-on-3, dog-eat-dog battles had just begun. After more than 10 minutes, when Yu Qingfeng was forced to release the power of his ancient bloodline, Jian Wufei, who had cultivated the Mountain River sword art, was forced back and spat out a mouthful of blood. Of course, Yu Qingfeng wasn't any better. Let's go. Jian Wufei saw that Liao Guangye and the other person were only equal in strength against the other three, and were being suppressed. She didn't hesitate and gave the order. Liao Guangye and the other disciple hurriedly used their ultimate move, and forced the other three to retreat with Jian Wufei. Yu Qingfeng and the other three knew that it was impossible to kill them, so they didn't chase after them. Wufei, we're leaving just like this? After Jian Wufei and the other two had escaped a few hundred miles away, Liao Guangye unwillingly asked. Leave? Did I say we were leaving? We're only retreating temporarily. Right now, the three of us are only equal in strength against them. If we really fight to the death, we might be the ones to lose. Let's find a place to cultivate first. The small cultivation grotto heaven has a month of time. In Sky City, a month is enough for me to cultivate the 4th level of the Mountain River sword art. My Mountain River sword art will definitely reach the early stage of great success. At that time, Yu Qingfeng won't be my match. The male disciple from the eastern continent will definitely be dead. Even if the female disciple comes out of the grotto heaven, she won't be my match. When we kill her, we'll be able to obtain the treasures in the grotto heaven. Those treasures definitely have something to do with space. We must obtain them. Powerful. Hearing Jian Wufei's words, Liao Guangye and the other disciples said in shock. They knew how powerful the Mountain River sword art was. If Jian Wufei, who was only half-step nascent soul, could really cultivate the 4th level, not to mention Yu Qingfeng, even if she met a late-stage nascent soul expert, Jian Wufei would have the ability to kill them. What did it mean to reach the early stage of great success in the Mountain River sword art? Under normal circumstances, only super geniuses at the incarnation realm could cultivate it. Jian Wufei, I don't ask for much. After obtaining it, I only want 10% of the spiritual herbs. If there are many spiritual treasures, I'll share them. If not, I don't care. If there are secret manuals, I want to obtain the right to cultivate them. I promise I won't tell anyone. The other disciple said. No problem. Jian Wufei said. Looks like I'll have to work harder. Wufei, I won't be left behind by you. Let's meet here in 29 days. As for the distribution after obtaining it, you can decide. Liao Guangye looked deeply at Jian Wufei before disappearing into the horizon. Goodbye. The other disciple also cupped his fists and left. Seeing the two of them leave, Jian Wufei revealed a trace of disdain and thought. If it wasn't for the fact that I don't have absolute confidence in comprehending the Mountain River sword art, why would I care about you? Although Liao Guangye is not bad, he's not on the same level as me. How can he be worthy of me? Humph, no matter what, I must obtain the treasures in this grotto heaven. Once I increase my comprehension of space, my Mountain River sword art will be even stronger. Not to mention the super geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands. I can even make a name for myself in the Central Continent. Brother Yu, that Jian Wufei definitely won't leave like this. If I'm not wrong, they'll definitely come in a month. Although Brother Yu is strong, Jian Wufei is also a super genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. If you want to kill her, you'll have to fight to the death. Why don't we prepare first? After Jian Wufei and the others left, a disciple from the Southern Sea Islands spoke in a deep voice. You're talking about setting up an array? Yu Qingfeng looked at the disciple and pondered. This disciple's strength was the weakest of the 5, but his fame in the Southern Sea Islands was second only to Yu Qingfeng. The reason was that he was proficient in the Tao of mechanisms and formations, and had astonishing talent in this aspect. Otherwise, with his strength, he wouldn't have been able to get such a result in the Sky City's test. This youth's name was Han Ji, and he was nicknamed Little Shinji in the Southern Sea Islands. He was the successor of the current sect leader of the archaic sect, Shinji Zi. That's right. As long as I set up an array here, both Jian Wufei and the girl in the grotto heaven will be trapped. Although they won't be trapped for long, a few minutes will be enough. With Brother Yu's strength, you'll definitely be able to capture or kill them. I know that Brother Yu doesn't care about using such methods, but this is a fight for luck. If we don't do this, we might end up like today's situation again. Hanji quickly said when he saw the look in Yu Qingfeng's eyes. Yes, Brother Yu, Hanji is right. Although Jian Wufei isn't Brother Yu's match, if Brother Yu wants to take her down, you'll have to fight to the death. When that happens, it'll be bad if that girl from the eastern continent takes advantage of us. This time she arrived before us, so she's obviously very fast, and her strength shouldn't be weak either. If she really escapes, we'll suffer a great loss. If we do this, we'll be absolutely safe. Alright. Then we'll do as you say. Hanji, I'll leave the setting up of the array to you. We'll split the cost of the materials from the treasures we get. As for the distribution, it'll depend on how much effort each person puts in. Let's do it this way. Both sides were confident in their victory, so they didn't care about Chen Shui and Chen Hao in the grotto heaven. In their eyes, Chen Hao had suffered such a terrifying injury that it was impossible for him to survive. As for Chen Shui, even if she had improved tremendously in the grotto heaven, she wouldn't be able to cause any waves. It was only a month's time. Even if she obtained a powerful technique, how much could she comprehend? Fuck them. When I get out, they'll all die. Chen Hao, who had stepped into the small cultivation cave, endured the enormous injuries and suffocation all over his body, and cursed angrily. At this moment, this fellow was truly stifled to the extreme. Epiphany, that was the legendary epiphany, the epiphany that cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. Even if he wanted to encounter it once, it was extremely difficult. It was definitely something that could only be chanced upon and not sought. But it had been forcefully interrupted by those guys. Otherwise, Chen Hao was sure that he would have reached the peak of the late golden core stage, or even half a step into the nascent soul stage. Moreover, he would have been able to comprehend the true essence of the space element. How many times would his battle strength increase? It would be strange if he wasn't depressed. Puffed. Chen Shui broke free from Chen Hao's embrace and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. She simply didn't care about the injury she had received. Under the black veil, her beautiful eyes stared at Chen Hao in a daze. With a trace of anxiety, she said, Quickly, I have a nirvana pill here. Swallow it. Chen Shui knew that if Chen Hao didn't use his body to protect her, she would have been smashed into pieces. Of course, she was in danger because she wanted to save Chen Hao. At this moment, Chen Hao's body, especially between his waist and chest, had 7 to 8 holes that almost completely penetrated his body. She could see his internal organs at a glance. How could she not be anxious? Not to mention that Chen Hao was her younger brother. Even her friendship with Chen Hao made her extremely frightened. The Nirvana pill was a life-saving pill that her master gave her. But at this moment, she could only give it to Chen Hao without hesitation. Because she knew that if she played for a while longer, Chen Hao's life would probably end here. Part 1. At the end of the chapters in the future, Dark Mountain won't nag about how many chapters it owes. Dark Mountain will do its best to pay it back as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.